members can attend that. Next is a resolution honoring Mr. Kevin Rice, and that's going to be presented by Commissioner Isbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a resolution honoring Kevin Rice for his selfless dedication and commitment to Anderson County, Tennessee. Whereas our dear friend and community servant Kevin Rice will be retiring from his membership on the Anderson County Beer Board after nearly 2 decades of volunteer service to our community. And whereas Kevin has consistently and selflessly volunteered for government committees and community programs without monetary reward, with his only desire to make Anderson County a better place for all to live, work, and raise a family. And whereas Kevin worked as a member of the rescue squad and corrections officer at the Anderson County Detention Facility for several years before his health declined and forced him to medically retire from his position. Despite his physical handicaps, he continued to passionately serve his county in various volunteer roles. And whereas he was a vital member of the jail planning committee that faced difficult decisions while tackling the lingering problems of jail overcrowding while balancing compliance and stringent state mandates on the housing and care of inmates. He was instrumental in the development of the Alternatives to Incarceration program that continues to be a vital component of the Anderson County judicial system. And whereas perhaps his greatest accomplishment came as a member of the Anderson County Beer Board, where he fought relentlessly for stricter laws on the sale of alcoholic beverages to minors and increased fines to area business owners who sell alcoholic beverages to underage persons. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Anderson County Board of Commissioners, meeting regular session this 18th day of November 2019, that we honor and commend our dear friend Kevin Rice for his selfless volunteer spirit and his constant desire to make Anderson County a better place for all. Be it further resolved that we declare Friday, November 22nd, 2019 as Kevin Rice Day in Anderson County for his relentless dedication and commitment to Anderson County. Duly passed, approved, and effective this 18th day of November 2019. Thank you.
Also have a plaque for Kevin Rice and want to read that to him on TV right now. It says, with our greatest appreciation, we hereby present Kevin Rice with this award in recognition for your passion, unconditional commitment, and enduring dedicated service to the citizens of Anderson County and in preventing underage drinking, presented by the Anderson County Beer Board and ASAP of Anderson.
Kevin is actually watching. He's in a nursing home in Wartburg, so he couldn't be here tonight. So he's watching on TV. Thank you.
Congratulations, Kevin.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to speak, and I'm sure that Teresa will want to speak too. Kevin, well, for years was in District 7, and we depended on him, and he depended on us, we think, because he constantly called us and helped us with a lot of our decisions, and we certainly appreciated that, and we'll miss him. Recently, he moved out of our district, and he's over with Steve Meade and Catherine Denningberg now, so they're rewarded with his efforts.
Yeah, for 7 or 8 years.
Yes, hi, Kevin. I've known him for about 15 years. We started Neighborhood Watch program in the city of Oak Ridge. That's just grown and blossomed and actually has pushed the problems that we had back then with regards to underage drinking and drugs and thieving and so forth. We pushed it not only out of our district, but pretty much out of the city of Oak Ridge, to the point where the police department was calling the Oak Ridge Police Department, the Clinton Police Department was calling Oak Ridge saying, what have you guys done? Because we're getting flooded with all the problems. And you're right, he's called us to keep us on track the entire time. I'm gonna miss him. And congratulations again.
Yeah, in regard to Kevin, I hope you are listening out there. You know, it's funny because we interfaced many, many times in a lot of different places And it was funny because you would come in and you'd look around, you'd think about things, you start making suggestions. You ever notice that he'd give suggestions? Okay? And then people go, oh no, here he comes, he's going to give all these suggestions. Then as he was leaving, they'd be saying, God, we should have seen that. And so, it's funny, he was always there to kind of keep you on guard and on track, and that's a very good thing for a citizen to do. Thank you, Kevin.
Our next resolution will be honoring Mr. Joe Long Jr., and Commissioner Jerry White will be presenting.
I'm going to ask everybody connected with the Long family to come stand behind me. Please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've not read over this good, so I might not read it exactly right. But proclamation resolution honoring the life of Joe B. Long Jr., forever known as the Mule Man of Anderson County. Whereas, on October 28th, one of the most charismatic and inspirational citizens of Anderson County peacefully passed away in his Dutch Valley home at the age of 67. And whereas Joe B. Long Jr. was admired by all as a hard-working man that blazed his own trail in life, leaving love and compassion to everyone he knew. He was the first to help a neighbor in need, the first to help an ailing animal, and the first to show others the love and beauty of Dutch Valley, the first to talk of the wonderful legacy and heritage of the Long family of Anderson County, and above all, the first to thank the Lord for his many blessings in life. And whereas his work ethic was unsurpassed as man that rose before sunrise to begin a long day working with his nephew and tending to his famous mule team. His personal favorites were two highly spirited jacks known as Amos and Fred that he considered family. He was always in attendance at Mule Day in Columbus, Tennessee, where he became a world record holder for hitching 42 mules to one wagon. Joe was a charter member of the East Tennessee Draft Horse and Mule Association, organizers of the Bicentennial Wagon Trail across Tennessee, and was a famous invitee and crowd favorite at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City. Unknown to most, Joe was often called upon to be a consultant and advisor to the Heartland Series television show. And whereas he was an accomplished carpenter, constructing mule-drawn wagons, hitches, and wheels from scrap lumber, fittingly, Joe made his own pine box coffin lined with used burlap. Joe's heels were dug in deep in the Dutch Valley soil, but also in southern Appalachian culture heritage that is fast becoming a distant memory. And whereas Joe lived his life the right way, showing kindness and compassion to his fellow man, he put others and his animals first before his own needs. In time of need, Joe was there for anyone who needed a helping hand. His strong work ethic and simple way of life should be a roadmap to happiness for all. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Anderson County Board of Commissioners, meeting in regular session this 18th day of November 2019, that we honor the historic life of Joe B. Long Jr. His love and devotion to his fellow man, family, animals, and this county will never be surpassed, and his legacy will live forever. Be it further resolved that we declare Thanksgiving Day, November the 28th, 2019, as Joe B. Long Jr. Day in Anderson County, to give eternal thanks to a man that touched the lives of all who knew him, and allow us to bestow everlasting honor to the life of the famous Mule Man of Anderson County. His name will be etched in the history of our great county, and we are all better people for knowing this kind and compassionate and generous man. Resolved, duly passed, and effective this 18th day of November 2019. And as I was reading this, Joe's mother, Miss Long, if she was still alive and with us, she would have brought a big strawberry cobbler that we could have all shared. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to present this to Gary Long, but I'd like for you to introduce all of us, if you would, please.
Thank you. This is my son, A.J. Long, named after his papa on both sides, of course, Andrew and Joseph, and my wife, Phyllis. Lorraine, my second oldest sister, Glenda the third, Wanda, my youngest sister, Geraldine, the oldest sister, and my twin brother Larry, and we're all close. And their brother's the first one, and then we got Jake and Harmony, of course, our next generation also. It's Joe's daughter and Joe's grandson. We've got the second grandson in the back, and we really appreciate it. And Joe was raised with mules out in the valley. Me and Larry, we got out of it and got into tractors. Joe couldn't get away from it. But thank you. Harmony, yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody, any comments?
Quickly, Mr. Chairman. Well done, Commissioner White. And I'm embarrassed to say I don't reckon I ever met Joe. But I tell you what, I've learned more about him since he went on to heaven than I ever knew. But the Long family is synonymous with Anderson County. And I appreciate this resolution, and I appreciate Jay putting it together. Well written, sir. Thank you. And I appreciate the way you read that, Jerry. And thank you, Long family, for all you've done for Anderson County and will continue to do. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we've received recently a new chief ranger for the North Dam State Park, Ms. Veronica Greer, and I invited her down to introduce herself to the county and commission and just tell us a little bit about the new initiatives going on with the park. So here's Ms. Greer.
Thank you for having me. I must say that I did not know Mr. Long, but I've been driving by through Dutch Valley to get home, and I've seen the sign for the Mule Man, so it's nice to know who that was. I wish I would have known him. My name is Veronica Greer. I'm the new park manager at Norris Dam State Park. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself and then what's going on at the park, just to get you guys up to speed. But I've worked for Tennessee State Parks for about 10 years. I'm from East Tennessee. I've been in East Tennessee for about 27 years and actually graduated from Coalfield School in Morgan County. Went to Tennessee Tech and worked at several different parks. Radnor Lake in Nashville, at Fall Creek Falls State Park, Panther Creek State Park. I took a 5-year break and stayed home with my family and was a full-time mom, and then went back to the Park Service, but went with the National Park Service for 5 years. And I've worked in Morgan County, Scott County as well, Big South Fork, Obed Walden, Scenic River, and the Manhattan Project. And I just was able to come back to State Parks and start my position at Norris Dam in May. So glad to be here. I've been in Oak Ridge for a little over 10 years. Don't hate me, but actually we're the first street into Roane County, so I don't actually live in Anderson County. So, but I love the schools in Oak Ridge. I'm a Oak Ridge Lions Club member. I've been currently serving on the Anderson County Tourism Council and the ARC of Anderson County as well. So I try to stay active in our community. But just a little bit about some of the park projects that we have completed and that we have upcoming. We are working on, we actually have just completed all the dark sky lighting installations throughout the park. So all of the major buildings, the Village Green area, some of the historic district, the Tea Room, the Lenore Museum, all now has new dark sky lighting that will kind of help eliminate some of the light pollution and reduce our energy cost. We've done a lot of work at the marina and plan to do some more work at the North Dam Marina. There was a lot of masonry work that needed some restoration, so we were able to do that this summer. And in December, we're going to be doing some renovations to the restrooms there as well, which are a historic building. We are currently doing work on the historic the Rice Grist Mill. So we're replacing the 25-year-old roof with the historically accurate red cedar shakes, as well as doing some work on the sidewalk. And I'm hoping by next summer we'll have the mill actually operating. We have to do some work on the buckets, but that's my goal. So I hope that will happen. We're upgrading the campgrounds, the East Bathhouse, and let's see. And we have one large capital project, and that's replacing the water tower on the west campground. So hopefully the next year that will happen. But I want to talk about just a few new park initiatives that we've got going on. So we just kicked off our grand opening for the Storybook Trail that happened on Saturday, and we had about 65 people in attendance, which was really great. So we have a new trail that features the book Owl Moon by Jane Yolen, and it was a partnership between the Governor's Birth from Books Foundation and the Tennessee State Park Conservancy. So it's a great way to get kids outside, promote literacy in the outdoors. And we're hoping to get another, a different book in the next 2 years, so we can kind of keep that going each year. We are going to have a new program that kicks off in January called the Norris Dam 84-Mile Challenge. And so we are going to encourage people to hike, mountain bike, horseback ride, or paddle the trails within Norris Dam State Park and also the watershed. And we'll be leading some ranger-led hikes each month just to promote the park and get people outside and have some fun rewards for those who finish that initiative. A new initiative that we're going to work on is getting all the rangers out into the school system in both Anderson and Campbell County. So we're hoping to visit schools to give curriculum-based programs, as well as offering field trips to schools, and those will all be free of cost. And then, of course, our upcoming events is our holiday homecoming, which is Saturday, December 14th from 5 to 9. And that will take place in the historic district of the park. And it's a free event. We are asking everyone to bring one canned good item. We're going to donate that to the Norris Area Food Pantry. So that's kind of just a little bit about what's going on. But I'm very excited to be here and serving both the counties of Anderson and Campbell County, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know, yes, we have a lot of new things coming up, and so I'm excited about that.
Can you repeat the date, the time and date?
Yes, ma'am.
Or-
So the holiday homecoming is Saturday, December 14th, from 5 to 9 p.m.
And it's being held where?
It's at the east side of the park in the historic district at Norris Dam State Park. And we'll have press releases. I believe it's on Facebook right now. And we'll put flyers out in the community as well.
You know, I have to tell you that I've got some friends who have visited the cabins, and I've actually gone inside of them, and as well as the tea room, and I'm quite impressed. It's a neat place.
It's very rich in
We've
history.
seen a lot of deer,
That's good.
a lot of deer, but it's quite nice. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you for letting me come tonight.
Thank you.
Questions?
Okay, it's time for we've got two public hearings we're going to have for rezone some property. The first public hearing is for 214 Mahaffey Road, Powell, Tennessee, 37849. That's in District 1, TN Map 97, Parcel 132. So we'll consider this as the public hearing on this rezoning is open. If there's any comments from the public, just come up to the microphone, state your name and address.
I'm Ronald Todd. It is my property. It's about 15 acres and with maybe half of it that's not straight down on the corner of Mahaffey and Clinton Highway. I would like to use part of it for warehouse for myself and rental. I've priced a building that's 8,000 square feet, and I plan to put an office in each end of it and keep half of it for my own business and use half of it to rent out. Any questions? I have talked to two of my neighbors that are kind of inset, their lots are inset in this property, and they have no problem at all with it.
Mr. Todd does have a recommendation from the planning commission, and if you'll notice on your map, he has road frontage on Mahaffey Road and also 25W. And of course, any kind of business that you would create, you wouldn't want to create a lot of excess traffic on Mahaffey Road. But he also has future plans of putting in a road off 25W. And the way the topography is, the terrain and stuff there, that'll be quite an endeavor. But of course, Mr. Todd's going in this with eyes wide open, and he realizes that would, be quite an expense, but that is in his future plans as well.
What is it currently zoned?
A2.
A2.
Yeah, most of the properties around it are joined to A2, but if you'll notice, right in that corner, there's a few properties that are zoned C1, and if I'm not mistaken, you own one of those as well.
Yes.
He and his son, or Mr. Todd himself, owns one of those lots that's already C1, that's joining the parcel that is up for rezoning.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman
Chairman. Danny, I know a lot of us know who you are. Could you state who you are and what your role is in Anderson County? So people
Yes,
listen?
I'm Danny Phillips. I work for Anderson County Planning and Development.
Thank you, sir. And yes, several properties butt up, and one of them is Mr. Todd's, as you already pointed out. I don't see any issues. Commissioner Fritz, I don't know if you have any questions. I mean, you're going from an A2 to a C1, so you'll be paying more taxes. We appreciate that, and I appreciate the way you handle this. And Danny, I don't see any issues, and I also appreciate that Mr. Todd. Has this property been posted like we've been doing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So it's been properly posted for
Yes, sir.
a period of time and all that kind of good stuff. Well, thank you. I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Just wondering, what type of business do you have?
I'm in the rental property and construction. Don't do a lot, slowing down.
Thank you.
Commissioner Scott.
I'm working on a house that was built sometime after the Civil War, but it's real old, and it's down by the lake. If you're ever out that way and want to stop by, feel free. It's not a profit thing, but something I've always wanted to do.
Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. And just for clarification, what is the difference between an A2 and a C1?
Well, your A2 is more of your low-density type land, not necessarily the farmland. You're a little bit more rugged, low-density population type. And C1 is your general commercial district.
Right, but on the map itself, between 147, 147.01, 148, and 150.02, 150.03, et cetera, is an A2 plot, which is 149. How does that change? I mean, what's on that particular piece?
I don't
That
know if
makes
I
it
can
kind
answer
of-
that. I
okay.
see what you're saying. There's an odd little parcel kind of boxed in right there. I don't know for sure. I have been out there. I went out there to post it. I had to post it on the Mahaffey Road side as a result of the way the property lies along 25W. But I don't remember for sure what that little block of property is.
I mean, I
Mr.
would
Todd,
hate to find out
possibly.
that somebody's got a house or intentions of building a home there and they're going to be blocked, just
There's-
surrounded by commercial property.
There's 3 houses in that
There's
block.
3 houses?
Yes. They've been there. I've discussed it with the folks living there, and they have no problem with what I'm,
The folks that are living in those 3 houses, are they simply residents or are they the actual homeowners?
they're the homeowners.
They are the homeowners.
They're not rented.
So Denny, have you spoken to those residents?
No, ma'am, I haven't spoken to no residents. But I will say this property where it was posted for rezoning was close to the entrance of those driveways right there, with those being houses. And now that Mr. Todd has said that, I do remember seeing, homes there. But as far as, which home's on which parcel, whatever, but I haven't spoke with anybody, but they could have not missed the sign right there by,
Robert and Teddy Metcalf live in two of them.
I personally have been up those driveways many times, so I know what you're talking about. No, you can't miss the sign that was there.
The little triangle by the road that's red, Robert had bought that and was beginning to fix it up and had a little mobile home on it. I said, Robert, what are you gonna do with that? And he said, gonna move his son in there. And I said, what would it take to buy it? And he said, well, I paid $6,000 for it. And I said, I'll give you 10. And I tore it down just to clean up the mess. But I've been working on Mahaffey Road for 25 years, and I've cleaned up maybe 12 or 15 properties, where as many as 15 junk cars and trucks and bus and that kind of thing were there. But that's kind of been my whole life project.
Danny, we're not at the point yet where we're sending out certified letters. I know we were planning on maybe changing some of our procedure for notifying property owners. We're not doing that yet.
No, and I'm still waiting on Mr. Yeager, I guess, for the finality of that. I don't know what else we need to do, if there is anything. And I think he's trying to work with Clinton City too, for some reason on that. The change of notification has something to do with them too.
They're a regional planning commission also, they have to approve our changes.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
So I have one question for Jay then.
Okay.
Jay, if you're in the process of working with the city on such notification, how long do you think it would be before letters are sent out to the neighboring properties? At least, I'm just concerned about someone being boxed in when it comes to commercial properties surrounding any residential.
I don't think it'll be any longer than the first of the year. It takes one more step after Clinton approves it. I don't see any obstacle there. It'll come back to county commission for final approval. There is a couple of small changes by our planning commission, and that's to allow them to utilize the sign. Danny had already spent several $100s on a smaller sign,
Right.
pretty big, was it 18 by 24 or something? And to allow them to use that, and then we put a provision in there that says, notwithstanding any other provision contained in this resolution, that, say for instance, if there was a mistake on our part, all we need to do is satisfy state law. I don't want anybody to say, hey, I didn't get a letter, and that nullify the whole process. So that's the one change Planning Commission recommended, were those two changes, and I didn't see a problem with either one of those, but I'll bring it back for final approval here. That should happen in December or the January meeting.
Okay. Mr. Todd, would you have any issues with us waiting until after the December meeting?
No.
Okay. Because I'd like to request that we wait until the process has been complete. Like I said, I don't want to see the county have any issues coming back on us because of an owner or family members of, or anyone that has interest in those two, or those pieces of the residential property to come back to the county.
Is that something you need to bring up during the report after the meeting, just the hearing? Okay. Okay, just bring that up. Okay, thank you. Commissioner White?
Danny, if I may. Commissioner Scott raised this question about the folks that live, the three houses that's on the partial 147. As far as the planning commission is concerned, if you've got three dwellings on that, three property owners, three homeowners on that, if they object to this rezoning, Does that have any impact as far as the county, the planning commission's concerned?
I mean, I don't know that I totally understand your question. I'm sorry. Ask me one more time.
Do the people that live in those three houses, do they have to approve of this rezoning?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, if they object, does that have any bearing on the planning commission?
No, I don't see how it would. I mean, what I would think would happen is when public notification is given for this, if they had some kind of qualms with it, then they would show up to the planning commission, then the planning commission wouldn't give a recommendation for it to come to the public hearing. But, you know, all the public notification, which is legally required at this time for us to give, was given. Nobody showed up to contest it, and so the planning commission gave a recommendation.
Well, my feelings would be, you as the working in the planning office, zoning office, I would like to have seen you bring some type of letters to verify that the homeowners had no problem with that. I'd like to have seen that. Being part of the BZA, we work with disgruntled homeowners a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that would have been, I think, would have made this complete.
Well, I think a lot of that will be resolved whenever the way we give public notification, when that is officially changed, then from what I understand, all contiguous property owners is going to get a certified letter telling them what is happening. And then again, if they want to show up and say, hey, here's a legitimate reason this shouldn't happen, then the planning commission can take that under advisement and, make a decision from there.
Good point.
So, I think that will
Good point.
take care of a lot of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Anyone else in the audience want to comment on the rezoning of 214 Mahaffey Road? All right, we'll call this public hearing closed and open up public hearing for property at rezoning of parcel 81 on tax map 32, the intersection of Mountain Road and Norris Freeway. This change the portion of the property currently zoned I-2 heavy industrial to A2 rural residential district. Danny, do you have any comments on that?
We have Danny Kirby back with us, and he's had a new map created, and basically now it's broken down into two separate parcels. What is going to be rezoned to I-2, or A2 rather, excuse me, and then of course what's I-2 will remain. And you can see on your map, it's highlighted in yellow. That's what's being proposed to be rezoned. The rest will remain I-2. If you'll notice on the bottom left-hand corner, there is a block down here for a signature. That's so that this map can be recorded. And ultimately, what's going to happen is that when, and saying this in faith, that the rezoning will go through tonight, these lots will be broken on down into smaller tracts, but not tracts small enough that would have to go before the planning commission. Anything over 5 acres don't have to go. And so they wanted to leave a little wiggle room. Instead of having all of it platted out now, they wanted to go through the rezoning process. They got a new zoning line put there. They wanted to leave some room in case a buyer come up and said, I don't want 5.5 acres, I want 6 acres. And so they didn't want to plat it all out. But we got a zoning line there. Again, Planning Commission has given a recommendation for this. They seem satisfied with it. And so Mr. Kirby's here to speak to it as well.
Danny Kirby, 3035 Port Royal Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee. I was here last month, and there was a little bit of confusion about the submittal that we had turned in towards the Planning Commission originally, because we had actually shown all of the 5 acre tracts, and so I think there was a little bit of confusion about, is this a subdivision plat? Is this a rezoning? And then trying to distinguish where the zoning line was that we were trying to create with all those other lines on the map. Danny said, I think it'd be best just pull all those other lines off, give us a good survey, detailed line of where the divide would be between the I-2 and the new A2 zone. So we went back and we've created this map at their request that we added the signature block so that what we would do, and I've got them here, is pending approval tonight. First thing I'll do is get the owner's signature on this. We take it down to the courthouse down here and record that. So then that actually creates two separate pieces of property that you all can identify in your records as being part A2 and part being I2. So kind of create two separate parcels to start with, and then what's been rezoned I2, or excuse me, A2, will be what we carve up into the 5-acre tracts going forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have the restrictions that you were going to attach to the deeds?
I do have a copy of those.
That,
Yep.
if you
Those
could
will be
share.
recorded. Yeah, so we've created a set of covenants and restrictions. Again, we have an architectural review committee, which would be us until we sell all the lots. At that time, then it passes on to the actual property owners who have bought the tracts that we're subdividing. You know, that's a delicate balance when you're trying to create covenants and restrictions, especially on a 5-acre tract. But essentially what we've said is one single dwelling on a 5-acre tract. There's not to be any further subdividing. Can't even grant an access easement across your property to somebody else's tract, whether adjoin or be behind you somewhere else. So things like you can't leave junk cars sitting out there. We put a time limit on that. RVs and boats and those kind of things need to be screened. So again, it's a delicate balance between, you don't want to put too many restrictions in place because, yeah, somebody might want a 5-acre tract, but they may not be able to build a $500,000 house. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to create a place where people can have a small mini farm and a house, but we also didn't want to open it up for adding a house later on, parking vehicles out there for long-term. So we think we've created, and I'm happy to share a copy of these with whoever, get you a copy of them so you can see them. But we think we've got a pretty good plan here. Okay.
Any questions, Commissioner Yeager? Anyone from the audience have any comments or questions? Commissioner Waddell, it's your neighborhood. You're good? Anything else? I'd like a copy of the restrictions.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll give you this copy. Right here. A couple of extras. I'll leave the copy with Danny, and you can
Thank you.
scan them in, or I can send him a PDF of them.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else?
Oh, Commissioner Mead?
Yeah, these restrictions allow the construction of a recreational type building. And I have a lot of friends that have built homes on big lots. Then later on, they put like a small barn kind of thing, or.
Yeah, what we
kind
call
of
an
thing.
accessory dwelling to that.
Yeah.
You can have an accessory structure, but again, the design review committee wants to review those
Yeah,
plans.
it wouldn't be residential, it would be.
No, right. It's
yeah,
for
okay.
parking big RVs or storing materials. What we want to make sure of is if you build something like that, if you can, make it match sort of the architectural characteristics of the house that's built there. We understand when you're building a barn or some type of outbuilding like that, the size of it may dictate that you wouldn't put brick and stone and those kind of things on it. But just in general, we want to try to make sure that it
Great.
fits with the character of the property there.
That's good, thanks.
Anyone else? Any comments from the audience? All right, we'll consider this public hearing closed. And that concludes the presentation portion of the meeting.
Y'all need a break? You guys need a break real quick?
Sure, why not?
All right. Yeah, let's go. Let's come back at 6:45, okay? 6:45. Give us 5 minutes. Okay.
How
see any reason not to approve them. They've got all the current requirements. I'm thinking this guy obviously
2 extra minutes. I'm on the clock.
That was the chairman's fault.
Yes, it was. Thank you for pointing that out. Who we missing? We got everybody? Commissioner Mead.
We can go ahead and start now.
So I was thinking. Everybody check in and count your presents, please, before we get started.
Get that iPad there. Just your right hand.
That includes myself. All right. We're going to call the Anderson County Board of Commissioners regular scheduled meeting for Monday, November 18, 2019 to order. We apologize for starting late. We had some public hearing matters we had to take care of, so we'll talk about those in a minute. But we'll go ahead and get started. I'll lead us in prayer, and Commissioner Mead will lead us in the pledge. Please rise. Go to Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you tonight, and thank you for this time in Anderson County and all that you do and bestow upon this county. And we recognize a lot of folks tonight that are no longer with us, and those that are still here. But as you can see, this county is volunteers and folks that care and have compassion for this county and see the growth of not just one individual, but all individuals in this county. And Lord, we thank you for that grace and the faith that you bestow upon this county. We ask for your guidance as we approach Thanksgiving, and remember that to reach out to those that might need an extra hand, or just to let them know that they're loved and thought of at the time of Thanksgiving. And all these things we ask in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the salute to our flag. Hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Meade. Okay, next is appearance of citizens. Anything that's not on the agenda, please come up, state your name, your address. You have 3 minutes. Okay, we'll move on to approval and correction of the agenda. Do we have any corrections to the consent agenda first?
Move to approve.
I think we have one correction requested. Commissioner Creasy, sir. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to move the request from the Glenwood School donation for the safety patrol to the regular agenda so that we can discuss that need.
Would like to move that request to the regular agenda. Where do we say we was going to list that, Jerry? I don't remember.
Anywhere you wish.
Okay.
It's listed in waste management funds, but the document was actually left in the other agenda.
Yes, under the consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the commission? Where would you like to move it to?
6C would be nice.
6C it is. We'll move it as 6C. Turning that 3 to a C.
I'll second that.
We got a motion by Commissioner Scott, seconded by Commissioner Creasy to move the information on the resolution. Is that right? The Glenwood Elementary School, yes.
That'll be after the budget report.
Okay, after the budget report, 6C.
Talking about money.
Okay. We did have a motion first, though, to approve the agenda. We'll make this as an amendment to that. Do we have a second to the motion to approve the consent agenda as is, and then we'll add that as an amendment?
Second.
Second. All right, now let's vote on the, any questions on the agenda as presented with the amendment? I'm kind of putting it all together tonight, trying to wrap it up. So. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. Commissioner.
Are we talking about the regular agenda?
This is consent agenda still.
Okay,
I apologize.
I thought you
Good
said you were
question.
wrapping it all together.
Well, I meant the consent agenda.
Okay.
Those two motions, I guess you could say. Any questions on the consent agenda as presented with the change? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the consent agenda. Regular agenda. Commissioner White.
Mr. Chairman, thank
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask that we would put on the agenda the road superintendent at 5A.
Like to add 5A. Do we have a second to that? Second. Have a second. Any discussion on that item? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other items on the regular agenda to add or change? Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. I'd like to give a public service announcement, make it 4C,
We'll make that 4C. Bless you.
please.
We have a motion by Commissioner Scott to do a public service announcement under 4C after we approve all these agendas. Is there a second to that? Second. We have a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other items we need to add? Commissioner?
I'd like to add the legislative committee report to 10 is the second item.
Legislative
The
Committee.
meeting that was held Thursday.
We'll make that 10B. Okay.
That'd be fine.
10B, legislative report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other agenda items we need to add? I'd like to have a motion from someone on the jail request for the HVAC. Have a, go ahead.
to add that in with the budget report.
Second.
Have a motion to add the HVAC emergency request by Commissioner Yeager, seconded by Commissioner Scott. Any discussion on that item? We're going to move it again under the budget report, so we'll make it 6D really, but we'll let him do the D before you C, okay?
Well, it's kind of 6B, point
Okay,
sub A.
okay, well. I'll defer to Mr. Jameson with his knowledge from the CHS. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, okay. Any other items to add to regular agenda? Mayor, you got anything you want to add? We're adding a lot, so might as well. No. Okay, all in favor on the regular agenda as amended, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so the next item would be this public service announcement by Commissioner Scott. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Free flu shots are being given at the Anderson County EMS Training Room at 314 Public Safety Lane in Clinton tomorrow morning only from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for first responders only. First responders who haven't gotten your flu shots, please do yourself and all of us a favor and get your flu shot. They're free. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you very much, appreciate that. Next, we're going on to public hearing report by Vice Chairman Josh Anderson, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a public hearing at 6:20 this evening for, two public hearings actually, for rezoning of property at 214 Mahaffey Road in Powell. That's to change the zoning from A2 to C1. And we need a motion to, that was recommended by the Planning Commission. We need a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve. All of the requirements, current requirements have been met. This guy's a longtime resident. He's been talking with all his neighbors. Everything's been properly posted in accordance with the law. I see no reason to delay his ability to go ahead on a property he's lived at for many, many years. Thank you.
Do I take action on that now? Or does he run that part?
I think I'm just reporting it, so.
Yeah, I just want to pass it off. All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Meade to approve with all the regulations that have been met on the property that have been described by Vice Chairman Anderson. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Oh, sorry, we have a motion by Commissioner Waddell, seconded by Commissioner Isabel. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The second hearing was for property at the intersection of Mountain Road and 441 North Freeway to rezone half of the property from currently I-2 heavy industrial back to A2 rural residential. And that was also recommended by the Planning Commission.
Have a motion by Commissioner Yeager to approve, sir?
Yes.
And a second by Commissioner Isabel. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Creasy?
Right, and last month, we felt like he hadn't met all the requirements before he came before us. And I understand that he's been working very closely with the law director. And he has fulfilled the obligations as required by the zoning regulations like Mr. Todd has also. And the only thing I have personally, I'm gonna vote for it, but personally, I just don't like the fact that we have the residential and the industrial I-2 next to each other. That's a problem for me personally, but he's met all the requirements of the zoning resolution. He's legal, and I'll vote for it this time.
Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Creasy. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Anderson, sir.
Thank you, and maybe Danny can correct me on this, but I think some of the surrounding property to the industrial park is already zoned A2, and and then there's a subdivision further down the road that's higher density, but there's already some A2 and I2 bordering each other in the area.
Yeah, the majority of the property around it is A2. Straight across the road, almost straight across the road, you have Brookstone subdivision, which is R1, which is, higher density when it comes to houses, things like that. So, but yeah, the majority of property around it is A2, so.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Anything else, Vice Chairman? That concludes your report?
That concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good job. Commissioner Yeager?
No, sir.
Was you raising your hand, Commissioner Yeager?
Not for
Oh,
any reason.
okay. I thought I was asking a question. All right. That next is going to be 5A, which is Gary Long, Road Superintendent, on the item he had presented before us. We added, Mr. Long, would you like to, see already? There he is, sir. Come on in. Thank you.
In case you didn't know I was here.
Commissioner White, did you want to talk about this, or you just want to let Mr. Long go ahead, sir? The floor is yours.
We got these two roads we're talking about taking into the county system.
Yes, sir.
There one's in a subdivision over in the edge of Knox County to get into the entrance, come back into Anderson, and we're ready to release the maintenance bond on it. And then the other one is a phase up in Stardust Boat Dock, which is also phased to release the maintenance bond. We need to
So
take
we're
it
looking
into
at
the system.
Highland View, located at Emery Vista subdivision, and then Vista at Harbor
Correct.
Club.
Yes.
Located in Harbor Club Development. We have a motion by Commissioner Scott.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Mead. Any questions for Mr. Long? Comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And also at this time, I'd like to present you with our inventory as we have to by name.
Thank you, sir. Now, this doesn't include the new trucks yet, do they?
No, they're on the way.
When will they be added? Next year? Thank you. I just had to, you're only getting 3 trucks. I didn't want to make it sound like you're getting 100.
That's all right. We appreciate it. Appreciate the
No,
help.
we thank you.
Appreciate what you all do
Gary,
for
you
us.
do above and beyond, and I just want to thank you. You anytime, and I know you can't do it all the time, but when there's a request, you always answer the call with an email or call or text or sometimes all 3, and I just want to thank you for that. Commissioner Fritz, sir, you have a motion.
I move we accept his inventory into the minutes.
Have a second by Commissioner Yeager to second as presented. Any questions for Mr. Long on the inventory as presented? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, and we'll be glad to add those trucks on next year's inventory.
I understand. You still got to get them in, don't you? Thank you, sir. Okay. Next, we have committee reports. Purchasing report by Catherine Ashmary.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have just 3 contracts. They've been approved by the law director for your consideration. I like to take them individually, though, because one of them, Commissioner Mead requested additional information about that I haven't received, so I wanted to point that out. So the first contract is with Avesta Systems, with EMS submitting for your approval.
Have a motion by Commissioner Fritz to approve. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Isabel. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next contract is the one that Commissioner Mead had a question about during our purchasing committee meeting. It is a grant for juvenile court to develop and implement specialized infant and toddler courts. Total of $300,000 at $100,000 per year. However, as Commissioner Mead pointed out, their attachment A, which is supposed to be the grant budget, wasn't itemized at all, and I had emailed juvenile court with a request for that information, either the itemized budget or an explanation why it wasn't needed, and I have not heard back from them.
Motion to defer till we have the information.
We have a motion to defer by Commissioner Mead, seconded by Commissioner Yeager. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the third contract is with Pharonics for Rocky Top Library, and it is perpetual software licenses and a 3-year maintenance agreement for some software that's gonna, even though it's multi-year, it'll still be all paid out of this year's money.
Have a motion by Commissioner Scott to accept as approved.
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Commissioner Isabel. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And that's all the contracts. We do have a number of capital assets that we are requesting to have surplus, 14 of them, all, well, vehicles and then 2 convection ovens, submitting for your approval either individually or as a group.
As a group?
Hang on, I got Commissioner Jameson, I think had a, did you have a motion or something? Motion. Yes, sir, go ahead. Oh, your motion to approve as presented? Seconded by Commissioner Scott?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have unless anybody had any. No? All right. Thank you.
Have a good evening, Catherine, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is going to be the budget report by Robbie Holbrook, sir. Hey.
Okay, first up, I have the cash and fund balance for October. Still unaudited, but the audit is finished and complete, and we have our audit adjusting entry, so next month will be a complete audited
Robbie,
cash and
I
fund
don't mean
balance.
to interrupt, but you actually have, I know we have the links working, which I appreciate, but you also have them in the body of the minutes too, right? Looks like.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
So starting with the restricted funds, with general fund, it's 1.3 million, committed funds, 2.4, assigned funds are at 519,857, and unassigned fund balance is at 4.8 million, with total fund balance at 9.2 million. Cash this month is at $8,246,543, which is up 2.8 million from last October.
What do you attribute that to, you think?
Well, we're doing real good in the sales tax, I think.
Yep.
And I even included a copy of the sales tax this month for you guys to look at.
I saw that, the local option sales tax.
Yes,
Are you going to talk about that, or?
I can.
Yeah, I like that it's, what's it, 2.649 million, 2,649,000 and some change in 2018 total local option sales tax. 2019, and again, we're not even at the end of the year, through September was 2,370,000 and some change. So we're looking pretty good with the local option sales tax with 3 months left. Looks like we're averaging in the neighborhood of $240-something thousand, if I had to guess, on a monthly basis. So we'll have that 246, almost 700,000 more on top of that. So we'll be way ahead of what we did last year.
So this, like September was up 13%, and August was up 19% from last year.
Good point. I see it out there. Very good. Any questions on the local option sales tax for Robbie? Commissioner Scott, and I'll come back to you, Commissioner Isabel.
Thank you. Robbie, so with those numbers in mind,
Yes, ma'am.
how much are you looking, how much goes to the general fund, how much goes to the schools?
Well, this is the general fund. So all the general fund gets is Anderson County portion of what Anderson County collects. We get half of that. It's actually not half, 63%, and the highway gets 37% of that. And Oak Ridge, like $2,072,170 were collected in Oak Ridge in September. Right off the bat, they get half of that. Then the other half is divided between the schools according to attendance and those kind of things.
And this is all before the property taxes
Yes.
roll in. That 10 cents that we got jacked up on last year. And when do we start the budget process for next year?
That, you should be getting a calendar next month.
That's great.
That's hard to believe.
I know.
And it'll be around that time that we'll start getting our books to look to see what we can cut
It'll come a
and
little
where
bit
we
later,
can
but yes, ma'am.
bring the taxes back down and then some, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. Because if it's not on fire, I'm not all about it. All right, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Isabel, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just a statement about, I sent you the email this morning about Tennessee state revenues for October exceeded the budget estimates for a $50 million surplus. That's across the state. So,
Wow.
yeah. And the highway committees and stuff get a big portion of that, so.
Wow.
Good things are happening in Tennessee
Many everywhere.
and Anderson County. Is that it, Commissioner Isabel? Thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Fritz, I'll come back to you. Commissioner Meade, I'm sorry, Fritz was before you. Yes, sir.
A lot of the things that are happening is really, really good, but we need to remember, we started out with what the needs of this county was something before the net left us, was something like, it was going to require something like a 52 or 53 cent tax increase. And we got it down to where, to about around 10 cents or something like that. So the needs that this county is facing is still astronomical. The capital needs of this county are still astronomical. It's going to cost 20-something cents or almost, 25 cents or something like that, just for capital needs alone to take care of this county. So a lot of this projected revenue coming in is going to help offset a lot of the needs we have from that 52 cents that we didn't get. So we got a lot of needs in this county, and this right here is going to help take care of it. And we're still not going to even get there, but it's going to address some of it. And every year, too, the things go up that we don't have control on. The insurances and all the other stuff that goes up that we don't have control on. So there's a lot of things that before we start saying, hey, we can cut this or cut that. We've got a lot of astronomical costs that are still way up there that we've got to address and look at before we start doing a lot of other things.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Commissioner Meade, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that I'm on the Governmental Affairs Committee for all the commissioners across the state. And one of the major victories we had last year was a change to the sales tax law. What they did is it had been that everybody in the county went into the cities to shop. Okay, but now more and more people are buying online. It's becoming a major thing. It's becoming huge. And what the law has been changed, it'll go in effect here shortly, is that the sales tax is going to be paid based upon where the products are delivered, not where they're sold from. So if you buy something online and it's delivered to your house, your zip code and address will determine whether the county or a city gets the sales tax revenues. If you live in the county and you order something online, it will be the same as if you bought it in a store just in the county. And so it's going to help the county. It used to be that most of the people went into the cities to shop, and then the cities literally got all the sales tax. And now that more and more people are shopping online, it's only fair that those sales taxes get paid to the place where the business actually happened, and that's the home of the person that ordered it online.
Thank you, Commissioner Meade. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually, Commissioner Mead kind of touched on what I was going to ask. It was about the internet sales tax and if there's any estimates out there yet of what Anderson County may be getting. I know we were kind of deliberating on that some during the budget process, but
Nothing yet.
still no word. Okay.
I think Commissioner Anderson, what I heard is they're going to start collecting them in October of this year, which already started, of course, but I don't remember, Commissioner Isabel might remember. Do you remember any of the projections? I don't recall either.
It was too sketchy because the
Right.
only one that we got was from Wayfair.
Yeah.
It didn't include Amazon or anybody else, it was just Wayfair.
That's right, that's right. Good questions, good comments. Commissioner Scott?
Yes, and regarding the internet sales tax, one of the comments that was made at the conference was to remind people that it is going to go where the package is delivered. So keep in mind, if you live in Anderson County and you happen to work in Campbell County or Knox County, get your package delivered to the house for it to affect us. Otherwise, Knox County will get those funds, as an example. But to encourage people that if you are going to shop online, to have it delivered where you reside. That'll make the biggest impact.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Good discussion. Continue.
Yes, sir.
Robert. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
moving
your
on
patience.
to the budget amendments in Group 2 appropriations by the school department. Looking for approval as a group or individually.
Have a motion, Commissioner Fritz, to approve as a group. We have a second by Commissioner Scott.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? Have to go to the board on this one?
Yes, please.
Motion passes 13-0.
Alrighty, Group 3, transfers from the school department. Looking for approval as a group or individually.
If approval as a group?
If they're absent, they're considered no's. It'd really be 13-3, right? Audra? Excuse me? Wouldn't the vote actually be 13-3 because the people who are absent count as no's? Not, or is 13-0 the proper way to?
You don't register it as free, because there are no
Okay, so it's just 13-0.
In fact, it's 3 no votes, but you wouldn't put down 3 votes no.
Yeah, if we had to have a majority or.
It's 3, regardless of the majority be necessary, 13 is enough.
Well, 13-0 is the correct vote.
Okay.
Correct?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, sorry.
That's okay. Appreciate it. Mr. Parliamentarian? Come on now. You got to earn that, you got to earn that paycheck. I'm just kidding. All right, Robbie, that one passed. Continue on.
Did we vote, Group 3? We had a first and a second, I think.
We have a motion by Commissioner Smallridge to approve as presented.
Yes.
Seconded by Commissioner Scott. Any discussion on that? Let's go to the board and vote. Group 3. Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Group 4, appropriations, non-school. Seeking approval as a group or individually.
Have a motion by Commissioner Fritz to approve as presented, seconded by Commissioner Smallridge. Any discussion? This is Group 4, did you say?
Group 4.
All right, let's go to the board. Motion passes unanimously.
All righty, there were no budget amendments in Group 5. Group 6, seeking approval as a group or individually. It's appropriations from the general fund, unassigned fund balance.
Motion by Commissioner Fritz to approve as a group, seconded by Commissioner Scott.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on Group 6? Seeing none, let's go to the board and vote. Motion passes unanimously.
All right.
Robbie, while you're looking there, anyone at home that would like to know what we're voting on, they can always go online and see all
Yes,
this
sir.
information, you're correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to Group 7 miscellaneous. The first item under miscellaneous was a letter from the comptroller and the EMS report. The comptroller sent us a letter about our budget. It asked me to, letter constitutes approval by this office for the county's fiscal year 2020 budget as adopted by county commission. It wanted me to make sure that every county commissioner saw a copy of this letter, because they did have one consideration concerning the budget, that according to the budget submitted by the county, the ambulance emergency medical services fund is projected to end fiscal year 2020 with an amount of cash that is less than 1 month's average monthly spending. The fund appears to have sufficient cash during fiscal year 2020 to remain balanced. However, to ensure this continues, the county's finance staff should provide the following information to commission if it doesn't do so already. And that's an updated cash flow analysis for the fund showing actual data from prior month and any changes to forecasted data, and a budget to actual report for fund, including both revenue collections and expenditures. And it also says that we should submit these reports monthly, and we can do this for every fund if you would like to see that also. But I did submit the EMS statement of expenditures and encumbrances. This is for 4 months, July through October. And of course, the first quarter would be about 33%. And on their expenditures, they have used approximately 35% of their budget, and their revenue is at 30, they collected 34%. So they're, looks like they're right on.
When technically did their budget start? Did it start?
July 1st.
Even though we didn't pass the budget?
No,
till-
but any money spent from starting July 1st for this year's, any
Considered.
kind of invoice for this year was considered this year's budget.
Okay.
We were kind of acting without a budget then, but.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none? We can
No
continue.
action, it's just information only for that one.
That letter, was it in the package?
Yes, it was.
Commissioner Scott, do you know what page it was on?
It's actually in,
It was where, 55?
59. Thank you, Commissioner Waddell. Got it, okay. Go ahead, continue, Robbie, I was just curious.
I'm going to move on to Group B unless you have any more questions about A.
Any other questions on Group A? Seeing none, go ahead, sir.
Okay, Group B was Anderson County Compensation Plan that Kim Jeffers Whitaker, our HR Director, presented. And all of the action was deferred to the HR Advisory Committee, and so no action was taken.
Okay.
Group C was the Marlow Convenience Park. And Mayor Frank just informed the Budget Committee that Solid Waste Fund 116 will need to seek additional funding to correct the water runoff issue at the Marlow Convenience Center. It was just for discussion and information purposes only. And in Group D, Mayor Frank discussed the analysis process being undertaken for a financial comparison of the Faith Promise Church property and the old Clinton Armory options for the senior center. There was a motion made by Commissioner Rick Meredith, seconded by Commissioner Chuck Fritz, to allow the mayor to seek an extension of the Faith Promises Church's November 30th response deadline until December 31st, 2019. And the mayor's asked that the commission also vote on this.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Mead. Can you state your motion, Commissioner Mead, as presented here?
Yes, just simply to find out what the offers really are and to evaluate the true value of the property. That's all they're really trying to do.
I think the actual
Was doing
minutes
it.
say that they're asking for an extension of time.
Yeah.
30 days.
And the extension of times to allow us to collect the information necessary and then come back to this commission.
With the final financial comparison, yes, sir. Okay. All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Mead, seconded by Commissioner Fritz. Sir? Any questions, Commissioner Scott?
Yes, sir. During the budget meeting, the mayor said that she's looking to do a pros versus con list, and she would be presenting it with an Excel spreadsheet with cost analysis. She was asking the architect at the church, et cetera, to get some numbers. But she was going to bring that to budget. That's all.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions or comments on the motion to extend?
That'll be the December budget.
That is correct.
Correct.
What day will that be? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
What?
What day would the Budget Committee meet?
First Thursday.
First Thursday.
But I
knew
think the
chairman
first
would
week,
know.
well, I think the first week of December it starts on the second day of the, so I think it'll be the second week, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
It'll be on the 5th of December,
So I'm wrong.
because December starts on a Sunday.
It'll be
the
announced
first
as normal.
Thursday.
No, I
First
know.
Be on the
I appreciate-
schedule.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the motion as presented? Mayor, did you have anything you want to add before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, in the last, under Group 8, additional items not discussed during the Budget Committee, there is the one budget amendment that the sheriff, that Tyler asked for us to include tonight, where we're decreasing,
Motion by Commissioner Fritz to approve, and this is, I'm sorry to cut you off, Robbie. This
You're
is
fine.
an emergency request, and I do appreciate you emailing today and letting us know as a body what the request is. There's a HVAC unit, my understanding, that has went out, and they need to replace it in the women's pod.
Yes.
It's getting kind of cold in there, and I'd like to make that change. Would you like to say anything, Chief? Are you good?
Yes, sir, just that, I've spoken with, Energy Solutions Group, and this unit that we got the quote on, is sufficient to upgrade. If that comes to light later in the future, it meets what they would be looking at.
Oh, good. Appreciate it, Chief. Thank you. Good. That's good information. We have a motion by Commissioner Fritz, seconded by Commissioner Scott. Any discussion on this motion as presented to allow, and again, this funding for this new HVAC unit is in place. The Sheriff's Department is taking it out of the cafeteria fund, if I'm not mistaken.
Commissary.
Sorry,
Yes,
commissary. Thank you for the correction. Oh, and we have it right in front of us, if you'll look at it.
yeah, I gave you all a copy of it, too, actually.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Robbie. Appreciate you. Have a good evening, bud. Okay. Yes, sir. I'm s- For that last motion? I apologize. Thank you for pointing that. You want a roll call for the last item? I did a voice vote, didn't I?
Yes, sir. Board vote, I think is what.
Oh, for the HVAC? Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
You can set the board, please, so we can, Commissioner Creasy would like for us, it makes more sense to do it since it's emergency expenditure across.
I'm not gonna take credit for that, someone punched me.
That's okay. I'd rather them punch you than me. Anderson's over here just waiting. Oh, I guess I better.
It's like
vote now.
Wandell's there.
See, I told you he's getting ready to punch.
Should have punched you.
That's right. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Creasy. Don't let him get over here. He's too big. All right. Thank you for bringing that up again. All right, next item, I think we had a 6, we called it C, which was information on the Oak Ridge. Is that correct, Commissioners?
Yes,
You
sir.
wanted
It's
to
the
talk
Glenwood
about-
Elementary.
Yes. Who would like to take the lead on that? Creasy or?
Chris-
Commissioner
Commissioner
Creasy, sir.
Creasy should.
Yeah, it's also in Teresa Scott's district. But the letter was originally gonna be from only Glenwood, but we decided that all fourth graders go to Washington, Safety Patrol go to Washington. So the letter is really for all Oak Ridge fourth graders. And I noticed that I had voted in the past for the Anderson County fourth graders going, and I'm sure that someone may want to amend or have another motion for them, but anyhow, I wanted to bring this up, that the Safety Patrol for elementary schools consists of fourth grade students who are selected to serve their school communities promoting safety and wise choices. These students help in the mornings and afternoons to ensure safe and efficient arrival and departure of all students every day. Safety Patrol members are role models for their peers and admired by younger students in our schools, and these fourth graders must maintain excellent academic standards and have outstanding conduct throughout the year. And I bring that up, that was in a letter from the principal at Glenwood. These are our next generation of leaders. And it's just like the Boy Scouts. It's teaching these young students responsibility and leadership. And I strongly encourage supporting it. We didn't have an amount along that we should be donating, but I asked all commissioners to donate whatever they feel is comfortable out of their waste management funds. I'm certainly going to give a lot, and I also must mention that my grandson is one of those members, and so I'll most likely have to abstain for the vote, but that won't stop me from giving and giving generously. And I hope that each of you will do the same thing.
Commissioner Creasy, you might have heard some murmuring over here, but based on the current laws in Tennessee, you do not have to abstain from that vote. It's not a direct spouse. It doesn't go down that far. And besides that, your grandchild's not really going to be receiving the money directly. Indirectly, he'll get the benefit, but that's not required. Jay, am I wrong?
Thank you.
Exactly correct, but I've talked with Commissioner Creasy. He's just going to do it on his own.
Understood.
Abstain. He knows
Understand.
He's allowed to vote on it, but he'd prefer to abstain.
Yeah, he's certainly not doing anything unethical. He would never do that in the first place, but I understand where you're coming from, Commissioner Creasy. Anything else? We got a motion by Commissioner Mead on that, Commissioner Scott, seconded by Commissioner Mead. Any other discussion, Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. In saying that, thank you very much, Commissioner Creasy. I would like to, just like I did last month, ask for all commissioners to please take $100 out of your fund to put towards this project. Commissioner Creasy and I can both agree to give more as it is in our district. I think it's fitting. But I would like to ask the commissioners that you take $100 out of your fund to put it towards this project. It'll be $1,600.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
And I'll second her motion.
Commissioner Mead's already seconded it. Is that the motion you seconded?
And I just wanted to,
Go ahead.
I had already volunteered to give 200, so make mine 200.
Well, if we can all agree to at least give at least $100, and Annette, you can send us all an email asking us how much we'd each like to contribute, because I will put more towards that myself.
Commissioner Scott, this is a good motion. Some of us recall that you made a motion for, I think it was Clinton High School and
Yes,
the
sir.
choir, the same motion, which I thought was appropriate. So, any questions on the motion as presented for all of us to chip in $100 from the waste management funds we have for this type of activity?
Or any amount they deem appropriate.
You can certainly do that on your own without a motion. That's what the money's for. This certain motion is just to allow each one of us for 100.
Yes,
If you
sir.
want to go more, you can certainly do that on your own.
Correct.
So that's the motion.
Yes,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good job. Director of Schools, sir, Mr. Dr. Parrott.
Thank you, and on that same line, I really want to thank the commission for allowing the Clinton High School Choir to go down to Nashville. They performed yesterday, did an amazing job, got a standing ovation, and it was just amazing to watch those students perform, and got a lot of great comments. They've actually been asked, they're going to be on TV on Channel 12 here in a couple of weeks, and then they've asked to be on either ATE or WBIR, so they're doing a lot of great things over there.
Dr. Parrott also, and I apologize, I don't remember the young lady's name that oversees that group, but she sent a very kind email to all the commission thanking us, and I just want to say thank you. That's very
That was
professional.
McCall Bohannon.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
McCall
Thank you.
Bohannon, he did that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And another thing, we were at all the board members were at our conference, the state conference last weekend, and there was a man that talked. He's with the TBI, and he's one of the nation's specialists on school shootings, and really mass shootings is what he taught. And he talked about the number one deterrent of a mass shooter is a locked door. That it is a proven fact that in almost every case of a school shooting, that the people that were ultimately killed were in an unlocked room. And as you know, we just finished a really upgrade to to all of our schools now. They all have the badges. I have my badge here. I can get in any school. I can lock down any school. And all of our doors are locked. And I think that is just it really, when we were sitting around the table and they started talking about that, says, you know, we're on the right path when we get everything locked. Another thing that if you've been out to the schools, and you may see some differences. You know, we had all the glass that you could just see right in the front door, and you knew where everybody was walking around. Now they're putting these it's a screen print up, and it allows you to see out, but it doesn't allow the other people to see in. But at night, when there's nobody there, and it's dark outside and it's light inside, when the patrol car goes by, they can see in. So it's pretty neat. So been doing some upgrades with that. Just another thing, our ACT scores, I can tell you they've went up again this year for the 4th year in a row. Our report card is still embargoed till November the 25th, but I will be sending that out. Another thing, as you know, Clinton Middle School last year we looked at and we designated it. It's got a designation now from the state of being a college and career academy. We've got 2 other schools that are looking at a designation, and what that means is they've got to do a lot of things. They've got to have a group come in and look. But Norris Middle School is looking at becoming an arts academy. They've got some real work to do up there, and what that means is they'll be doing the arts, kind of integrating that into their curriculum, into every grade. We have a full-time music teacher there. We've got an art teacher there. We're trying to make sure, one of my big things is we need a well-rounded student. And we have art and music in every school, but they're doing kind of really a focus on that. And the other school is Clinton High School. They're looking at a STEM school designation, so they're working on that. The last thing I have is I want to invite you to go out to our schools anytime you want to. Just you can call me or you can just drop by. Please go out and visit the schools. They would love to see you in the schools. Love to see you go through the lunchroom. I ate lunch at Norris Elementary today. I saw one of our commissioners out there eating lunch, and they love to see you all in the school. So please let me know. Okay. Hopefully you read all the other great things in the 11 pages of our November report.
Dr. Parrott, before I turn it over to Commissioner Anderson, I want to also say thank you to the whole entire school system for the Veterans Day recognition. Claxton School I attended, and we had several there, and I know all the other school systems participated, and I just can't ever thank you enough for the time that the teachers take, the staff take, and especially the students, and how they get engaged. And it's always a great feeling to be sitting there and watching these future leaders take that role.
They do an amazing job. One of the things I've talked with a couple of them about, we want to get more community people involved. You really don't just have to be a veteran to come to that, because a lot of the things they do, really and truly, you say it'll put a tear in your eye. And because the Veterans Day parade for hopefully the next 4 or 5 years wasn't on a Saturday when we had to do the All East Band. Both of our band, all 3 of the bands performed. Oak Ridge and Clinton and Anderson County performed in the Veterans Day Parade. We had our ROTC programs from those 3 schools, so it's a pretty neat thing.
Yes, Leon Jaquette said, I missed it, but it was well done, and I appreciate the bands being there, and said the Oak Ridge Band was like having a full college show up or something.
Yes, they have a big band.
Yes,
they do.
So thank you for that. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just regarding the door locks on the schools, how many schools do we have that still don't have a full-time SRO?
We have, they all have an SRO. There's about 6 of them that don't have full-time SROs. But with our grant, we're working with the Sheriff's Department to get them filled. It's a slow process of trying to find. It's kind of like them trying to find officers. There's a shortage out there. So we've put in 2 new ones this year, but that's our plan, to have a full-time officer in every school.
How much would that cost to,
That grant is for $455,000, and we believe we're gonna have that grant for the next 3 years. So in 3 years, we'll have to figure out how to fund the rest of that.
yeah, I know we've got more revenue coming in, and I do think that needs to be a priority for us over the next few years to figure out how to pay for that as a county.
We did work with the sheriff's office this year, and we added 2 more, and the year before that, we added 1 or 2. So we've been heading that way. This was just a grant. We put in for 3 because we knew that we could with what the county puts in and what the schools put in, we thought we had enough in our budget to do those 3, but the state come back and said, hey, just shoot for the moon, so we did. So we've got the funding out there, so then we've got to work on getting that in.
Thank you.
There's a couple of schools that will not have a full-time, like, there's one right now is at Norwood Elementary, Norwood Middle, and they're right together with that campus, so we're not sure about that. We've got one there full-time, but they're so close to that. I was, the last mass shooting, when you talked about that, the last mass shooting they had at the school, it lasted, I think that guy said it lasted 42 seconds until he took his life. So if you don't have an SRO in the school, that's where you have the concerns at, and we do. Yes. So.
Good discussion. Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Fritz.
Dr. Parrott, I'm on my 18th year of being a commissioner. During this time, I know a lot of this is the policy that you and the school board and the previous director of schools has put together, but working with the principal at Claxton Elementary School, it has been an honor to deal with them and trying to set up meetings and things of that nature with that principal, as whoever it's been over the past since 2002. Because, I mean, they have been outstanding, you know, and working with us as a commission, as commissioners or anything, and giving us the space and room that we need to have public meetings out there. If we call them and say, we'd like to have a public meeting, they go out of their way to give us whatever we need and to work with us and things of that nature. And I just want to know it goes very appreciated, because I know the citizens out there appreciate it. I appreciate it because it makes my job so much easier. This past 2 weeks, I've been trying to set up a meeting in the South Clinton area. And I've been hit with resistance, been turned down. Clinton City Schools have just, treated like I was somebody from up north come down one of the use of schools and say, and I've dressed like this right here, my name badge and everything. It's like, I thought I was going to get kicked out of the schools, But so it's been an honor in dealing with the Anderson County school system and having meetings and trying to do things to work with the principal of that area out there. And it's honestly, they are concerned about that the district that we were in, and are willing to work. And I think that's the best way to go and to be part of the communities.
Yes, well, I appreciate that. Yes, and I agree with that too. One of the things it's a community, and that's taxpayer money, and we want to be good stewards of it. But I think that is we've got just an amazing. I listen to directors when you go to these conferences, and you all do. You listen to other commissioners, and you figure out just how good we have it in Anderson County, and that if you need something, hopefully every one of you have my cell phone number, and you can call me at any time. And if we're not breaking the law and I can afford to do it, we're going to do what's best for the county, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I just know the whole staff out at Claxton Elementary School, they go out of their way to help me in anything I've ever needed. And I know probably Commissioner Wandell will say the same thing.
Absolutely.
They've been outstanding.
Yeah,
And,
Jennifer Coleman does a fantastic job up there. Thank
Yes,
you.
she does. Any other questions, comments how's flu shots went?
I'm not sure where the last number at. It was over 1,000. It's funny you said that, and I'll tell you, there's been a change in the way that some of the providers now, they won't just, before you could go anywhere and get a flu shot and your providers would pay for it. Well, now they've put in something that some of these providers out there says, oh, no, you've got to go to your primary care or we won't pay for your flu shot. Well, we've probably got 300 of them this year that did that. But the school systems go ahead and pay for that because we want every kid to have that. But I don't know, it's funny that it's just a way for them to make more money. And you know, you should be able to get a flu shot anywhere, but now a lot of them having to go to their provider to get that flu shot.
I'm interested.
But we're going to take care of it and make sure everybody has a flu shot.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Parrott. Appreciate all you do. Okay. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. I'm going to read off a letter that I had actually sent to the Courier that apparently never made it past the editor. And it says, today's teachers have to create a colorful and inviting atmosphere, as well as provide some educational tools for the young students in the classroom. Unfortunately, they are expected to pay for these goods themselves. The cost can be overwhelming, especially for a new teacher while just getting established. For the Anderson County Schools, a few hours of meeting with a handful of teachers and members of the PTO was all it took to get the concept in motion. The list of requested items had everything from paper clips, pencils, 3-ring binders, art materials, staplers, crayons, copy paper, office chairs, desks, bookshelves, rugs, and seasonal decor. From there, the team incorporated managers and owners of local businesses and corporations, chambers of commerce, and churches. They knew that community involvement was essential for the program to succeed. The superintendent of the school system was very positive and allowed and designed a space in the county high school to house the teacher supply depot. Sorry, I get choked up because it actually worked. All it took was reaching out to the community and asking for unused and/or unneeded supplies, and before they knew it, the truckloads of goods were arriving. They now hold 4 events a year for Anderson County teachers to take supplies that they need to better their students' educations, all the while keeping the money in their pockets. There have been 10 events in less than 3 years, with over 650 teacher visits recorded. To date, that simple gesture of paying it forward has been saving the Anderson County taxpayers, residents, and teachers over $65,000, and it's growing strong. When the doors open for an event, you can hear thank you being said over and over and over when they walk in. And that letter got an award, 1 of 4, given by the Tennessee County Services Association at their fall conference. Keep in mind, we have 95 counties in the state of Tennessee. And Anderson County received one of the county success awards for the Teacher Supply Depot. And I wanted to thank Dr. Parrott directly for your hard work and effort in allowing us to receive this award, and say thank you very much. I don't know where it goes. Does it go to the school, or does it stay in the county building?
I mean, it's up to, it would only probably go into our commission room, which only us 16 usually travel. So I think it'd be great to let the school, director of school, if he'd be willing to put it out.
We have a place coming into the central office there where we put everything out, we'll put it right there.
Please.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and do show it off to the teachers at your next meeting. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Scott, thank you for what you did and all that you've done in putting into this effort, and very appropriate for you to be there to receive this award. So thank you.
I mean, I knew that, you know, there's a lot of counties that put things forward requesting some sort of acknowledgement, and we were one of 4 to receive an award this year.
I mean, this body may or may not realize it, but this county is well represented at the TCCA. I know Commissioner Meade is chairman of the Veterans Committee. I sit on a couple of committees. I know Commissioner Scott sits on a few committees, and see a lot of our commissioners there, and I appreciate you taking the time. Commissioner Val was there, and I see others there, Yeager and Smallridge has been there a few times, and Commissioner Jameson's been jumping in there and showing us around, so I appreciate everyone that has time to do that and put the time into it. It always pays off for our county, I think. Any other questions? You good, Commissioner Scott?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay, County Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
No report, but Commissioner Mead has a question, maybe?
Well, no, I had a comment on
Sure,
the thing that,
sure.
just before you were finishing.
Sorry.
I think it's just really great that this program has removed an unnecessary burden, particularly from the newer teachers, because they really felt obligated to make sure their rooms were taken care of and those projects were being taken care of. And I know I have some nieces and nephews that are teachers, one of them here in a county school. And when she was brand new out of college and the main support for her family, that was money that was hard for her. And it's really good now that there's a program like this in place, and I think other counties across the state should look at doing something similar, because people are very willing to give for something that's this important. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mead.
Well said.
Yep. Any questions for the mayor? Come on, don't let her off that easy. Commissioner Jameson's catching on quick. He's over here, go on, move. Move on. Okay. Law Director. We're going to come back to under the operations on the other, so, Commissioner Val, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay?
I do want to clarify something for Commissioner Val.
Okay.
Thank you. The new lawsuits, those are the ones that we discussed prior. How far along are those where we can actually explain?
I will say this, the liability, if any liability, is on the medical contractor. It's not on our people, and I want everybody to understand it. Although we are named, they're all pro se type lawsuits written in the jailhouse, but they're not about our people. Although they touch on our people, it's really the medical contractor. So I want everybody to understand that.
If I may, Jay, and tell me to shut up at any point in time.
No, it's okay.
Just so everybody knows, we're not losing any sleep.
Okay.
Over these, if that's.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, thank you.
Our people will do a fantastic job up there, and they certainly care for our inmates there. They know the rules, they know the law, they're well-trained.
I can't recall a time that I recall that we've had any issues on our side, so.
When we're able to discuss this, and y'all are getting the explanation for it, you'll understand why we're not too concerned.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Jay.
that
Thank you,
discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
I do want to say we had the tax sale Saturday. It was a big success. The ladies in my office, along with the help of the clerk and master staff, brought in over $500,000 in a week there, and that they just being persistent, being patient with these folks, but they paid out before the sale. We weren't forced to sell any homes that we didn't think the people could make the payments, so we had very few. I think we'll end up selling about 11 homes. And Mayor, I know you're always concerned about this. I've got 3 I want you to look at. The law's been broadened now, the ones that we have to take in and ones we don't. We have a little bit more discretion. So I'll bring them to your attention in the next day or so and see what you want to do about them, okay? It's not, as you recall, used to, it was, unless there was an environmental hazard, we had to be the default bidder, purchaser. So that's caused us to get a lot of unmarketable type parcels out here, and our goal is to get them back on the tax rolls and not keep them in our inventory here. But anyway, it went really well. We had a couple of commissioners show up, and always great to see you guys show up at the tax sales. But it's a big success. I do want to thank Hal Cousins and his staff. They're tremendous at this. They really are. But any questions I can
Commissioner
answer
Fritz
on any
has-
issue.
Commissioner Fritz.
Yes, sir.
Back to these lawsuits.
Yes, sir.
Are these the type of lawsuits where we'll be charged at least the $5,000 for each suit?
I don't think they're going to be that far. In fact, I'd like to say I'm turned them over to insurance, but I think I can handle most of these without even getting them involved. We'll see what happens, but you're talking about the deductible. I don't think it'll raise to that level of 5,000. I can't see them spending a lot of time
'Cause I
on
know
these
we just
cases.
recently paid a big chunk.
Those are deductibles.
And all the
And if
deductibles
you
and,
look
you
at those, Robbie gave you a good breakdown of them. They don't necessarily run on one fiscal year. They cross over. It's tough to determine what their system of billing is. It's not like us where we have a finite fiscal year. Any other questions? I do appreciate you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Thank you, Jay. Next is committee boards and reports. Operation Committee report by Chairman Isbell. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First is ASAP of Anderson litigation tax veto on resolution number 19-10-772. Motion was made by Commissioner Meade, seconded by Commissioner Yeager, and passed not to override the mayor's veto and to move the new resolution number 19-11-783 to full commission for approval.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Meade, seconded by Commissioner Scott to approve as presented.
To approve the new resolution.
Yes, sir. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The MOU regarding the Anderson County Family Justice Center, motion was made by Commissioner Wandell, seconded by Commissioner Yeager, and passed forward to full commission for approval.
Have a motion approved by Commissioner Yeager, seconded by Commissioner Scott. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Archives, motion was made by Commissioner Wandell to request of the mayor to allow Mr. Lloyd to provide a reassignment plan of space to send to full commission for approval. Motion was seconded by Commissioner Meade and passed.
Have a motion by Commissioner Scott to approve, seconded by Commissioner Yeager. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Scott.
Mayor? Yes. Quick question about this. What area are you looking to possibly relocate archives to?
Okay, Roger, we did get that in the agenda. He did a cover letter and attached,
Page 98, it starts in the packet here.
well, I thought I brought it.
I got one. What do you need?
I'd like it to be stated where it may be located to.
It's down, I forget what the room number is. That's what's in your agenda. Roger, thank you.
First floor is 15, 16,
Yeah.
election commission.
So it would go-
17.
It would go where elections is at, ma'am.
To 15. And so when the group of us commissioners had toured through the building, that was one of the locations that we had kind of pushed towards it being for archives. And it was mainly because it's on the base of the building itself. And with the weight of all these records, that perhaps it would, give more foot room, I guess, is the word for it. Is that going to be sufficient enough, or are they going to be putting some of the materials in storage, or?
Some will go to Oak Ridge, and actually Rex, the circuit clerk, Rex Lynch, has already worked to take, I guess, approximately half out of the vault where we were talking about moving the voting machines. And all of those can come out of there. In looking at the archives, Matthew has done a complete inventory of all the books, all the file boxes. He's gotten with everyone about what needs to stay and be active there for the courts, and then what can go downstairs. Some of it we're actually just, even though we have dimensions and numbers, we're gonna have to get down in there and see, but we think we can get the majority of the older books and the documents that are true archives in that area.
And that will take the archives department off the third floor, correct?
Yes. And the weight, that's the whole,
And that's great.
that's the whole issue.
That's
So-
great.
And it'll actually make it easier to do the witness rooms.
Right.
And what Roger and I discussed was, we have an architectural plan for the witness rooms, but we've discussed, let's get all the archives out, because once you empty a space, we leave the files, the active files that they need. They may change their mind on maybe some other configurations, but
Okay.
we're still moving forward with the witness rooms.
Okay.
But that will give them a little more leeway.
And with this project, you will be able to utilize Matthew
Yes,
as well?
yes,
Very
yes,
good.
yes.
Very good.
And if possible, we would like you to make those room assignments tonight as part of your motion, so that we
would be
can
good.
go ahead and start, get with Mr. Stevens, finish with Rex, and start putting things into motion.
That would be great. That would be great.
Any other questions? So what we have, go ahead, Commissioner Creasy, I'll see you.
Yeah, on those room assignments, I noticed that in your letter, you're gonna store some at the Daniel Arthur Center. And I was looking at that diagram. Is that the same space that Torch was requesting, or is it once prior to that?
Well, the more I thought about it, I guess if we take a look at it kind of in my way of looking at it, if we did that and what ESG has kind of proposed, either and or, it really don't matter what ESG really does, I'm just saying it would be a help. But we do have the access, that would keep all of Anderson County. In the back section, we still have plenty of rooms available towards the front side where United Way's at presently, plus that whole section, especially when Emory Valley moves out. So we still have accessible rooms.
Yeah.
I think Torch is still interested. They have recently rented some space in Ridgeway Center. But that space, they're actually wanting to be in Daniel Arthur building, close to United Way and that sort of thing.
Up on the
At
front
least
part.
that's my impression the last time I spoke with them. But they have released an office temporary with options that they can leave, and when this space comes available, if we vote to let them go there. So that, but I was looking at, I wasn't sure, I think the space that they were requesting was a little bit further east of the space in your drawing, but I didn't go over there.
Well, at one time, they were requesting in the back area, but to me, like I said, it would make more sense to put everybody up front.
Right.
This way, Anderson County only, I'm saying for our storage purposes,
Right.
for whatever, I'm saying
That
that
makes
section
sense.
of it, that way we can come in the back, that way we can go ahead and we can add a few more cameras at a low cost, secure the area, and at least we've got storage for the next few years. And like I said, we still have space available,
Right.
so.
Thank you, Roger.
And the storage area is gonna be well protected.
Yes.
Right.
From water damage and that sort of thing.
So you're looking, oh, if I may, yes,
You finished, Commissioner Creasy?
kind of
Thank
used
you,
to
sir.
being committee style.
Commissioner Mead?
Well, I just want to say that, some of the people that are watching might understand, we discovered recently that the loading in the records room on the third floor is way beyond the structural design of the building.
So we talked
I'm
about when we
happy
took the
that we're
tour.
getting to moving these records to the first floor of the courthouse before they do it on their own. Okay? And so there's an urgency to this. We're not just a little beyond the floor rating, we are way beyond the floor
Yes,
rating.
sir.
Because, you start with a bookcase, and it's 18 inches wide and 8 feet long, and then it becomes 4 feet high, and then 6 feet high, and then 8 feet high, and then you start filling in every single space. The amount of weight is more than what you would imagine. And so this is really important that we move ahead, and I think this is a great plan, and I'm very much in favor of going ahead, just like they say here. That doesn't mean we can't make some little tweaks along the way, because we may very well find out there's some records that we use a lot that we want to keep handy at the courthouse and not take them to Oak Ridge or something, but that, we can learn that lesson as we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mead. Commissioner Scott?
So as the maker of the motion, I do get the last word, correct? Mayor, so the area that you two are referring to at the Darcy Building is where Bryson's Closet was? It's rooms 42 and 40, those are those two empty rooms
There was-
for the archives storage area,
Okay,
correct?
the room 42 that you're referring to, then the other one.
Correct.
Which presently has Anderson County,
Keep Anderson County beautiful.
Correct.
Okay, which we can relocate them to another
Right.
room with no problem.
Because those are on the back side.
Sure,
correct?
yes.
Okay. That's all, that's the only question I have, it's just
So,
clarification.
just to clarify, and I don't mean to be jumping in on you, Commissioner Isabel, but the recommendation that was asked of you both to come to full commission, and you've done that, so your recommendation is, if I'm saying this correctly in the letter, and then you tell me if I'm wrong after I read it, and I think this would be your motion, Commissioner Scott. You tell me if it's not, but it says here to move records from the second floor vault to DARC, rooms 40, 42, and 46, and some records from the third floor to the vault in the same location. Move election storage from first floor, room 15, 16, to second floor vault, room 17. Move remaining records and archives office to first floor, rooms 15 and 16. This frees up the third floor vault, room 15, for lawyer rooms, office space for the clerk and master's, and we'll have some same area for record storage for the clerk and master's office as well.
Correct.
And that is your recommendation to this
Yes.
body. And that is your motion.
Did you get all that, Kim? Okay.
She's got a cheat sheet. And that's your, and that's your second, Commissioner Yeager. Yes. Okay, any other discussion on that motion as presented? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chairman Isabel, sir, go
Law
ahead.
Director, motion was made by Commissioner Wandell to allow the law director or the mayor to prepare a letter to TVA acknowledging our attempt to use the Jackson Law for the requested landfill request. Motion was seconded by Commissioner Meade and passed forward to full commission for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Isabel, second by Commissioner Meade. Any discussion? Jay, could you come up and, I know you handed us tonight a new version of the resolution for the Jackson Law.
Yeah, that's basically what we've moved to approve this resolution, which moves ahead on this item.
Okay.
Right, let me explain this to you.
Mayor, do you have a copy of this new resolution?
No.
Thank you, Jay.
If you choose to invoke your rights under the Jackson Law to hold a public hearing to review the TVA proposal for Bull Run, then I'll go ahead and notify TDEC and TVA here within the next day. With that said, we'll need about 60 days to set this public hearing. I sent the law to you. There's several extensive notice requirements that we have to perfect and post on around the property adjacent to it. We've got, along with TVA, we've got to do some mailers and things of this nature to let everyone know, post some article or ads in the newspaper to let everybody know that we're going to conduct a public hearing on this. Our reasoning is this. Several months ago, we passed a resolution that had about 20 questions for TVA in there that would let us know exactly what their intent is with the property. We've never got responses from TVA. One of those, or a couple of those, indicated that would indicate if they plan to bring waste from other counties to this county. If we had a definitive answer from TVA, we might not have to go through this process, but we don't. If they are bringing waste from another county into Anderson County, we do have the right to reject this proposal under the Jackson Law. If they change the classification of the landfill, we do have the right to revoke their ability to do that. So there's two areas that we're very concerned about there, and not having the responses from TVA adds to our concern. Now, we went back and looked at our last Jackson Law update, and that was in August of 2012. There was a few changes, but one of the changes in 2013, one of the changes had to do with classification of the landfill, and that might be exactly where we're headed with this. So the AG has determined that any time the Jackson Law is amended, that the county legislative body has to pass a new resolution approving of the incorporated changes. And that's where we're at today. I went ahead and constructed a new resolution to adopt and incorporate all amendments passed by the General Assembly related to the Jackson Law for solid waste disposal since the adoption of our prior resolution 12-443 on August 20th, 2012. We were a Jackson Law county prior to that. Then we updated it in 2012, and now the General Assembly has changed a couple provisions there, and we need to update our own status with TDEC and incorporate those changes. This resolution does that. So I would advise that we need to pass this first tonight if you so desire, and then if you want to invoke your rights to do a public hearing, make that motion, and I'll make the contact with TVA and TDEC, and we'll start thinking about a 60-day out public hearing sometime around the end of January or so. Any questions on this procedure and what the Jackson Law is about and what we can and cannot do?
Commissioner Mead?
Yeah, do we need to approve anything tonight besides this resolution? Is there another specific item we need to?
Well, we would want to do this first, okay, and then make the decision whether or not you want to invoke your rights to a public hearing tonight. And at that point, they'll trigger me to go ahead and write the letters to TDEC and TVA, and then I would say, unless you want to do it tonight, we'll bring this back up at operations in December and set a firm date for the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mead. Commissioner Fritz?
I mean, there's overwhelming, support, for them not to put this new landfill in. I mean, it's unreal, the opposition to it. But my concern is, with them being a federal utility, and I know the federal government gives utilities basically unlimited powers and everything. With a lot of times they don't have to listen to us and everything. Will the Jackson Law apply to them?
We believe it does. There was a U.S. Supreme Court case, and I sent that out to County Commission last summer. That says when TVA voluntarily enters the private enterprise of power production, which they have at Bull Run, they're in the private sector, and they walk out away from those governmental immunities that you're talking about. This is similar to Duke Power.
So that gives us a good
Gives us
way to fight it then.
that Supreme Court case changed a lot.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How far out from the area would we need to notify people with mailers and what?
It's in those statutes that I sent you. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it is in that packet of materials. It's labeled Jackson Law Materials. I've sent it out, I think, twice now.
Okay, is that something we'll probably have to appropriate from out of the unassigned funds?
I was
Will it be
thinking
a
about
fairly
that. In fact, if
sizable
you see
amount?
my notes, I've got a little dollar sign there. It looks like we're going to have to buy some signage and some mailers and things of that nature. It's not a lot, but I'll get with planning and development and see if they may help us with that.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Jay, I appreciate you putting this together. To Commissioner Fritz's point, no one in our district that I found is in support of putting a storage unit place for CCRs, coal combustion residues, or a landfill for CCR, coal combustion residues, or a storage facility, or any other word they'd like to use. And our hope is that TDEC will reject the request to move Worthington Branch, where the branch is located. And then we are hopeful that TVA will store in place the current ash that's on site. And, we still have an interest in District 1, and I think this commission as a whole, to understand what the shutdown process is for Bull Run as it moves on. We certainly do not want that property to be left shuttered with the power plant sitting there, and they just use the transmission lines as they would like, and our community is stuck without jobs, and piece of property's been used for TVA since the 60s. So again, thank you. And I'd ask this body to support this if you could. I'm certainly going to be in favor of it, and I appreciate the research you've done on it, Jay, and I think it's time that we step up for our community and let TVA know that we don't want this in our backyard, and I think they have every right to say no. So
I share your concerns, and I think this could have been avoided if they had answered our questions that we passed. They were very simple and straightforward. They chose not to. Now, I want everyone to understand, we have to base our decision on evidence. It can't be arbitrary, capricious, and based on emotion. They have a chance to present their position and tell us what they're going to do. They have a chance to answer our questions at the public hearing. So I trust all of you that our decision will be based on evidence.
So, and I agree. We have a motion to approve resolution number 19-11-786, resolution to adopt and incorporate all amendments passed by the General Assembly related to the Jackson Law for the solid waste disposal since adoption of prior resolution 12-443 on August 20, 2012. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your button.
Let's go to the board on this.
Okay, we can go to the board. Brian, set us up, please, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Motion unanimous. Thank you.
I will say this, Mr. Chairman, remember municipalities that are within that 1 mile radius, this keys their ability also. So Oak Ridge will have that responsibility there.
Yes, they have to your point, they have the opportunity to
Yes, sir.
participate and be updated and request
That's
as well.
absolutely correct. If you so desire, I'd need another motion to invoke our rights under the Jackson Law for a public hearing. And I'll communicate that with TVA and TDEC.
Would you like that to be passed to the operations to set that date, as you mentioned, or?
That'd be the next step after this.
Okay. Commissioner Meade, motion, sir?
So moved.
To invoke the right.
To invoke our right.
Commissioner Fritz, you second that, sir?
Give that, Kim. I'll come back there and help you with it.
Any questions? Would you like to go to the board again? Let's go to the board. This, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Creasy. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I'm getting a little slow in my age, I guess.
And I just want to ask a question of the law director. I read in the paper that Oak Ridge has objecting to a landfill by TVA. And have you been in contact with them, or are we in sort of step with the city of Oak Ridge? Or
Not recently. I was in.
anything we're doing here is in conflict with what Oak Ridge is doing?
No, that's a different facility. If that's one they contacted me about a year ago. No, this is a different process if I'm thinking about the same project.
Commissioner Creasy, Mayor Gooch, my understanding in the past is interested in working with the county and making sure that everything's done in a proper fashion. And I haven't heard him or Mark Watson or any of the councilmen expressed. In fact, they've been very supportive in making sure that the TVA Bull Run facility is closed properly, safely, environmentally sound and safe. And
I was aware of that,
yeah.
and I just wanted to be
This-
sure that we discuss it.
Yeah, no, good questions. And to Jay's point, I think it gives them more, with this Jackson Law, gives them more ability to have that right now. Because the local municipalities also, as Jay said, within 1 mile have now the right to do the same thing we're doing. And now have to pass county and the municipality.
As an Oak Ridger, I felt like I needed to bring that up.
I'm glad you did.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank
Good
you.
advice, Mr. Chairman. That's correct.
Yep. Any other questions? Let's go to the board. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, if we can, just defer the setting of the public hearing date to operations, is that what you prefer?
Is there a motion to that regard?
Or you have the ability to set it tonight?
Commissioner Isabel?
We've got the ability to set it tonight, let's do it.
Okay.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Smallridge, you second it?
Yes.
We have a motion to set the date. What date would you like to choose? Jay?
Would you want it on a day of the county commission meeting in February, starting it early?
What's
can
the
do
pleasure of the
that.
body? I'm good.
Or we can do it on a separate night.
Is it 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock on February
17th?
Oh, everybody good for that?
Any idea how long the meeting would last?
I would project 2 hours. Would you like to see it earlier or later?
Shorter.
Jerry, we understand if you come in a little later.
I mean, if we're gonna have it on our commission night.
And that'll take this meeting until 7, so we wouldn't start our commission meeting until 7.
We could go 4:30 then.
Can we start early?
Let's go with 4. Give us plenty of time for 4:30.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Is the 17th going to be a holiday?
That's President's Day. I show it closed. Annette?
This will be the 18th.
So we'll probably move to the 18th. Is that agreeable to everyone? Is that a conflict with anybody this far out? I'm looking at the 18th at 4 o'clock.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
We have a motion to set the public hearing for the Jackson Law and TVA on February 18th at 4 o'clock. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have for you, Mr. Chairman, unless anybody's got a question.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
You're gonna notify TNEC and
TVA, yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Commissioner Isabel.
Mr. Chairman, there was a couple of other items that does not require action by the full committee, but just for information purposes, I'd like to read them.
Yes, sir.
One was the ESG report, and we've got some representatives here. A motion was made by Commissioner Anderson, seconded by Commissioner Mead for a recommendation to move forward with this project and allow ESG to go ahead and develop documents and an unofficial contract to present, an official contract to present to purchase in December. Motion passed with 1 no vote.
Mayor, yes.
I think there is some clarification on that. We did request a specific motion for approval on a work plan, so either the base scope or the expanded scope. And my recollection was that we did the expanded scope, and we will need, in order for them to develop contract documents, we do have to make that determination. So that's why they are here tonight. So I mean, that was my recollection from the minutes, from the meeting of how it proceeded. So if we could get a recommendation, and they're here to answer questions or present anything that they need to present.
Commissioner Mead has a motion. Commissioner Mead.
I'd like to move to go ahead with recommendation to implement the extended program they showed. There was I don't think the commission right now wants to go through the hour and a half or 2 hours that we went through the other night. But basically what it comes down to is the cost savings because of the reduction in utilities is going to pay for most of what we're going to do. This has already been demonstrated repeatedly by the education folks, and it's worked out very well. Their calculations that they've done in the past for us doing a similar kind of projects has ended up being better than what they projected, and they're saying that these are, again, are conservative numbers. The other thing it takes into account is we have a lot, in fact, we just had a motion tonight to replace an HVAC system at the jail that's been being patched and patched and patched for many, many, many years. And finally, they just can't make it run, so we authorized money tonight for the sheriff's department to replace that. I took it upon myself to make sure that our contractor and the jail folks talked to make sure that this equipment would be compatible with other changes that are expected to be made at the jail as part of this program. The other thing I pointed out at that meeting is that my personal experience with these kind of cost-saving measures was even just at my own home. When I moved to my house, I had single-pane glass. I didn't have I had no insulation in the attic. I mean, I did a whole bunch of things and reduced my utilities to 1/3 the usage that I had when I first moved in. And by doing that kind of thing here, we once again will be in a position like the school system already has to lower the minimum payment allowed, because we're not even going to use enough utilities to use the amount that the minimum requires. We have a lot of capital projects that are out there. We've got roofs that need to be fixed, a lot of things. We have a lot of crumbling infrastructure that this would take care of. And I think it's the way to go. It was clearly the feeling of the Operations Committee, and I recommend that we move ahead with the expanded program. Now, in all fairness, the lower program would have been completely paid for by the utility savings, but it would have left behind a lot of equipment we were going to end up replacing anyhow. Just like the one at the jail, that was one of the ones that was already targeted. And so that's my motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Meade, I really don't know what your motion is.
To move ahead with the expanded program as presented to the Operations Committee at the Operations Committee meeting.
Okay, so.
And was approved by a vote then.
Right, I don't think anybody's disputing the vote. Mayor, could I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Before I move on? What is your intent and what is your request of this body for this particular program? I understand, and I agree with you, what came out of the operations, of course, Chairman Isbell can speak to it better now. I'm just a member of the body. But are you asking us to approve the contract, or are you just asking us to allow them to present documents to us that reflect that request?
Well, the official contract would go through the purchasing process. But I am asking you to approve the project and then which scope of work you would like. The base scope did not require any additional funding. And all of those program elements were discussed and reviewed at the meeting.
Correct.
And then we've also posted those, Annette has posted those online and then distributed them to full commission as well. The complete project, and Russ is here and Jared, they can address any details that anyone has. The complete project, the big difference on that is it does involve cameras for the jail, a complete overhaul there. That's about $600,000. Part of that we would meet with some capital money from the commissary, and then also jails for the Jolly Building, which has been needed for a very long time in terms of security there. And then we would match some funds there from the courthouse security fund would be the intent. The numbers are based on that. And then the real big investment is completely new windows at the Jolly Building. And so that is the reason that it does go over any cost savings and would require some capital investment to do those replacement of the windows. So yes, I am asking for approval of what your will is, whether that's the base scope or the complete scope, and then we will officially execute through the purchasing process the actual contract documents where the law director would review or Catherine would review. But I would like approval of one of those scopes.
So, and you've answered a lot of my questions, so let me just kind of explain it if I could for the folks
Sure.
listening at home. For this project, which is based on energy savings, the project base cost is $5,450,979. The projected energy savings is $6,960,000 and, $6,960,602. So based on the cost of 5.4, there's a projected energy savings in 20 years of 6.9, which is 128% savings or return is what's in the base cost. However, tonight we are taking a vote on the complete project cost, which is $7,866,213. The energy savings, as you already pointed out, which includes new windows at the Jolly Building, which is needed, is $6,960,000 and $602. I'm getting all my numbers mixed up here, but the point is 7.8 for energy savings of 6.9, which is an 88% savings. And as you alluded to, we'd have to add extra costs in on that. My question is this. The motion is to pass this complete project cost, correct, Commissioner Meade?
Okay, but all we're doing is we're approving the preparation of a plan, okay, for the full project. And that plan will require full approval through the purchasing process before any money is spent.
Well,
but we're just telling them that we want to look at the big project, not just the minimal project, and then pick up all the other costs on our capital projects.
Yeah, and I guess, and I agree with all that. I guess that's why it's important how the motion is worded, because if the motion says to pass the complete project costs, then that means we're on the hook for 7.8
No,
million.
that is not the motion.
Okay, well, again, from my perspective as the chairman of this body, it's important that the motion is worded correctly and well understood, because if we just say pass the completed project cost of 7.8, then we're on the hook for that. And the next question is, how are we going to fund it?
Okay, that was not my motion. Let me restate the motion.
Okay, you're the maker of the motion, so
Okay.
I'll ask you again. I'd like to hear that
We're
motion.
approving the preparation of the full expanded plan as presented to the Operations Committee over an hour or two, okay? Because we're letting them know which direction we want to go, what we want an estimate for. This does not approve any spending at all. We are only giving them direction for what plan we want presented. That plan will later require submission through the budget process and bring back to full commission before the project. Any spending on the project itself, it will be approved later, not in this motion.
Thank you.
What you're doing is you will approve the contract later.
Yes.
Will all be put together.
This is only direction to the contractor to show us the certain
Contract will come
plan.
back to you at a later time for final approval.
That's correct, using the full purchasing process.
And with that description, Jay, we still have an opportunity to, if we don't like what's in the contract, to not move forward.
Absolutely.
We're not locking ourselves in tonight, is what I'm trying to explain.
Good way to put it.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You're not locking yourself in.
That's
We're
the
not approving the
clarification.
contract. We're looking at the
That's
plan.
right.
Okay.
That is
Is
exactly.
that your understanding, Mayor?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, but I also don't want, I would like they've done full engineering work, and I'm not trying to rush anything, but I also don't want it to be an experiment. Are we behind the full scope, and do we have a full intent for them to do the project?
But we did set, I mean, we've already paid money for the engineering.
No, we only pay if we do not do a project.
Thought we said-
So we agreed to, if we decide that we don't want to complete a project, whether it's base scope or complete scope, then we will have to, we did approve that contract and that expenditure through the budget process for $35,000.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm sorry, Commission, for having so many questions. I just had to get that clarified. Commissioner Creasy, I apologize. Go ahead.
Well, as you being the chairman, you have asked many of the questions that us commissioners would be asking. And that's not a reflection on you, Chairman. that many of the questions you just asked were the same question. The only other question, at this moment, I feel that the commission is going to approve a plan. That's my feeling of the commission, and I hope that satisfies your worry, because that will then pay for their engineering, or their engineering costs. We won't be having to pay for that if we don't do a project. But you mentioned a figure of $600,000. That was one of the questions I had. If we do the basic, we'll recover all of our costs,
Yes,
plus more.
yes.
If we do the complete, as Commissioner Meade made a motion to, that's where my question is, what will the cost be then? And is it more than 600,000, or was 600,000 a portion of that?
Yes, that is a portion, and Russ, if you want to come address some of those figures, that is for cameras for the jail, which has been needed for 20 years, 25 years. And same kind of system for the Jolly building and this courthouse proper. It also helps the sheriff address some of the concerns about single, he has desired to have a single point of access. The cameras will solve a lot of that problem and concern. And then the windows are the big ticket item. Now, the complete project cost that has $7.866 million, we are talking about putting $450,000 into that, so the financing portion would take less. And the reason I'm asking for a decision and for us to discuss this further is, in the past, I was just using the same system we used in the past for the schools. So that is, we approve a scope of work, then we finalize how the financing is going to take place. So for instance, Natalie and I, on the last project, we looked at different options where we got letters from banks. Then we also worked with Scott Gibson with Cumberland Securities. Russ even helped us in that particular, he was aware of some financing mechanisms. We reached out to folks. It ended up being going out to sale was the most economical way to do that particular program. So this would trigger those things to happen, where we would look at financing, where we would put the contract in place so that they could present Catherine with that scope of work and all the detailed work and everything that would be done. And I'll let Russ talk a little bit about the money side of things.
I wasn't quite finished.
Oh, sure.
I think we all agree that these are necessary items that we must take care of as county commissioners and as the mayor. It's a matter of when we're going to do it rather than, because we're going to do it. We're going to have to do it. So are we going to do it now, or are we going to do it later? But that 88%, I'm showing that's roughly 600,000, I think, if I'm doing that correct. I'm looking for the cost to the county commission, is what I'm looking for.
Sure.
What
Well,
are we gonna be financing, and is that gonna cost us a tax increase this year, which I don't think it will, but the public needs to hear that.
Sure. Well, I can address that. If you look, Commissioner Creasy, under the complete project cost, the average annual capital required is $86,475. So there are a couple of options for already existing sources. One of those is that current debt service is already overfunded. I think it's, what's the amount this year, Robbie? $162,000. So there is already funding within that debt service to meet that. In addition, one of the commissioners, Commissioner Anderson, pointed out that this year we did allocate an additional half penny to capital projects. This would meet that need. We could put it during the next budget season into the debt service if we wanted to keep debt service elevated and use that for capital projects. So there's, right there are two sources that are already existing that don't require any additional revenue or the county to go to anyone for, a tax increase or anything like that. This actually, when the schools embarked on their second phase of this, I became a believer after the first phase. And many of you probably recall my skepticism back at, those that were on commission at that time. And it has paid for itself, and their numbers were conservative, and they actually did better than their projections. And Natalie and I, as you recall, Natalie for 2 years was really stressing that we needed to address capital needs. And so she and I met with Russ very early on as the schools were getting off the ground. And Mr. Nelson told us, I think, we can work with you. We also talked with him about some possible help on solid waste. But they had other projects, so it took a long time for them to be able to come to us and start working with some proposals and doing the engineering. But no, sir, no tax increase.
You have told the public what they want to hear. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Creasy. Commissioner, you're fine, buddy. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Russ is probably getting ready to answer part of my question, but the commissary fund with the jail and the courtroom security, that was going to cover kind of the bulk of what the county was going to have to put up, wasn't it? Did that get us down to the 450,000, or was that part of the?
That does get you down to the average of 86,000 a
Okay.
year. The one thing I'd share with you too is and I think Commissioner Creasy, you said we're going to have to buy these things. Several of you have shared that thought, but the one category here, annual capital savings, we always try to make some estimation of the total project's percentage that would kind of be items that you're going to just have to do. They're coming. You could put them off, but they're going to become more and more painful to you in terms of repairs and other compromises to your operation. So there's never a perfect number to this. We effectively guessed about 60% of this total project. Somewhere in that neighborhood are items that are really going to force your hand. You're to a degree, and this was shared, but to a degree, you're paying for a lot of these things already. To buy things on an emergency basis is never preferred. You just don't get the benefit of planning and of any kind of bigger picture effort. So one of the things that's going on, for instance, in this building is we're really taking the heating cooling system to a true long-range design that's going to serve you well, comfort and efficiency. And the same thing will be true of the Jolly Building windows. That's all going to complement the time in terms of making dust and doing it once. There's a lot of disruptive work, but a lot of ceiling work is going to be done. When you've got a ceiling that butts up to the window, the time to do that work is together. And we've got project management expertise. That's one of the things we do very well, is coordinate those types of things. So, so again, if you considered the the capital dollars that you will have to spend at some point, the project more than pays for itself. But we always try to use the least amount of those dollars as possible. So, the one other thing I'd share is many of our projects, ultimately the funding structure effectively buys you a couple of years before you're really using anything other than energy dollars. We try to typically bank, we would call it bank some dollars during the construction period. And so depending on what's really in the best interest of the county, that finance structure can also assist you a little bit. So.
Questions answered? Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. Mayor, are there not any grants that we can apply for? I mean, after all, it is energy-saving projects that we're looking at. But are there no grants that we can get windows paid for?
I don't know of any grant that would do windows.
I mean, or any kind of improvements to what we're looking to do, camera systems and et cetera.
I mean, I know as far as equipment grants, you can get some smaller items. I know some counties that are successful, for instance, with, so ambulances as an example in equipment. But usually those are, Anderson County is kind of knocked out of that community development area. We don't score high enough points because of our employment levels and average income and those kind of things. So
Well-
usually you see those on a Scott County or.
I would just think that, you know, with the government creating incentives for people to upgrade their homes, put sprinklers in their houses, or put better windows in their homes, new roofs, et cetera, that there's got to be something for a government, even of our size, where the federal and/or state government agencies are encouraging them to upgrade and/or, you know, make it a better place.
I can give you a
Especially
quick
with the
answer.
energy that
We always try to secure those if they're available.
Okay.
I think what's to a degree happened is it's just like this project. It's an awfully good project without any government incentives. And so, and just as the mayor shared, your county's a little better off, or a lot better off than a lot of counties. We've written grants that we thought had a high probability of success, and they did not make it. On their merits, they were wonderful. It was the financial resources of the entity. But so to give you a very straight-up answer, I'm not going to give you much encouragement. The grant money's been really minor if we've been able to get any. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Isabel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the way that I understand this, and then from our Operations Committee meeting, is, and like Commissioner Fritz was talking about, we are taking on several of the capital projects that if we didn't use this group, if we didn't do the energy savings, we'd be paying out about $4 million out of pocket just to cover the projects that we got to do. So although we're doing about an $8 million project, so it's going to cost us roughly $688,000. So there's going to be a substantial savings there instead of, because these are the capital projects we are going to have to face. There's going to be significant savings and to pay it out. Thank you.
The one thing I'll share with you too is we never have a great answer on inflation questions, but what we've experienced in Tennessee, and it was impressive to hear some of the revenue numbers that were shared here tonight, but we're just seeing construction costs continue to go up. A lot of our contractors, and we try to really find high-quality contractors, they can't find good people. They're stealing people from their competitors, and that goes back and forth, but that doesn't solve it. So we're continuing to see inflation, and I think if the country ever passes an infrastructure bill, it's going to put far more pressure on materials and on labor. So I would say one benefit is we do lock you in and get this work done. And I think you probably know this from the schools projects, but we do not allow a change order. We're on the hook for this scope of work. if we've missed something, we did not understand properly the site conditions, and all these are existing buildings, that challenge is on us and the added cost is on us. So we do offer some benefits that way, but I do think there's more inflation coming in the construction world.
Thank you. Commissioner Creasy? Did you not?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Commissioner Waddell?
So as I understand it, it'll take 20 years for us to recoup our money, correct?
That's the finance term. So the actual payback, ultimately, it's a matter of how well the buildings actually perform with all the improved technology and new equipment.
Do you know how many HVAC units this will include?
Well, effectively, this building gets more or less a new system, short of the air handlers that are already here. I'm going to say roughly a third of your HVAC is going to get replaced or upgraded within this. Okay. And all of it's being addressed in terms of controls.
Shows here HVAC, replacement courthouse, Jolly Building, and DARC.
Yeah, and it's a portion of Jolly. It's just the units that are past life, probably a third of the units there. It's the entire cooling system really here, and a portion of the heating, and then the air distribution's all being upgraded. So it's kind of a tough question to give you a perfect answer on. But the HVAC that's really desirable to be replaced or upgraded is being addressed in this. So we're not really leaving something off.
Well, my only concern, I understand windows may last for 20 years, but an HVAC unit will not.
Well,
so we're going to be paying for new units, and we're going to be financing for 20 years on them, and they're not going to last for 20 years. We're going to have to find money to replace them again before we paid these off.
So that's an excellent insight, and it's a very common question from elected bodies. The reality of a lot of your equipment, it's well past the 20-year point, and you have to really look at each piece of equipment to answer that question. The best I can tell you is we often are replacing equipment that's 30, 35 years old that was not necessarily properly maintained. We go back to the engineering tables that talk about average life expectancy, but those are just that. They're average life expectancy. Your lights should be good for 30 years. The LED technology is 50,000 hours, and if they're not on 24/7, which they shouldn't be in your building short of the jail. So the windows should be a 40-year technology. The quality going in, if you do all the work, will be significantly better than what was put in originally, and those windows basically are at 40 years now. So you make a good point, but I think the vast majority of the equipment in this has much more life than 20 years, especially with good maintenance. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Waddell. Good question. Any other questions? Mayor, just quickly, was this project, ESG, approved by the Finance Committee and the Budget Committee?
It was not approved by Finance Committee. I only raised the issue in Finance just to kind of put it on the radar that if Commission chose to do one of the scopes, that Finance would need to address
A financial tool?
yes, the proper way to put the finance piece together.
Okay.
So I just was putting them on notice as a courtesy at the finance level.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm just going to, Commissioner Mead, read the motion the way I interpreted it. Feel free to correct it because you're the maker of the motion, okay? So this is what I wrote down in the last motion I think you said. Approving preparation of the expanded plan which doesn't approve spending, actually any spending.
That's correct.
Is that your motion?
I also like to make my final statement as the maker of the motion.
Well, sure. before you make your final statement, I'm passing the gavel to the Vice Chairman. Mr. Vice Chairman, you will finish this vote because I'm going to give my statement. I voted against this in Operation Committee because I'm not opposed to a plan to do all the fixing of the buildings. The mayor's been asking for that for I don't know how many years. I'm not opposed to ESG, the company. What I am opposed of is this body taking action without a recommendation from the Finance Committee, which is operating under the 1981 Budget Act. And I feel unsecure making a decision to spend the money, and the mayor has even alluded to it today, and it's true. The old finance director would come in here and give us all of the different options, different funding options, and I feel like what we're doing today is being presented with this wonderful idea to save money, which is all great, but I'm uncomfortable with the idea of not knowing how I'm going to fund it. So it sounds like what we're doing is saying, hey, it's a great idea, here's the two options, choose one. It looks like we're being proposed to choose the expensive one, and then figure out how we finance it later. So I just want to tell this body, I'm voting no again for those reasons. I'm open to, as one commissioner, to support it when the recommendation comes from the Finance Committee and the Budget Committee with all the details on how it's going to be funded. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Meade.
Yeah, okay, I think this is important. This vote does not approve any spending. Okay? It just selects the scope of our plan of action in the future. We can do these capital investments now and reduce our utilities dramatically by millions of dollars a year very quickly as the program starts. Or we can pay the cost of doing all this stuff piecemeal at significantly higher cost in the future. We have a duty to take the responsible action, and this activity is a responsible action. Thank you.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I may say something, I'm very sensitive to the economic concerns, and I think many of you know me by now on spending issues, and this is something where the county has a historical failure to fund capital needs. And even on this, I mean, it's a very good way of financing the capital because we're writing the utility checks anyway. We're paying CUB, we're paying natural gas, and if we can put the new equipment in, then instead of paying CUB and Powell Clinch and, you know, those associated costs, we actually have new equipment and we've cut our utility bills. You know, it's why trucks are selling right now. The cost of gasoline is cheap, and so people are buying trucks because they can afford more car because they're not having to put it in the gas tank. And truthfully, there is interest in here, and the savings, utility savings are covering that, but I would like to see us not pay interest. I do know Commissioner Yeager has talked about, you know, the low cost of borrowing right now, and maybe there are some things that we can do to pay down some of our existing debt. And maybe as we talk about growth that's coming in, so the additional sales tax dollars, we don't have to spend those. We can say, we want to make a motion and we want to dedicate those sales tax dollars to getting more out of this program than we're even going to get. So there's nothing stopping us from doing that. But until we can develop a plan, this is the, you know, I don't know of another way to do it other than just rating the general fund when we have emergencies. This gets us on a better playing field. If we want to do something, you know, long-term with a Jolly building, improving that facility not only helps us get more life if we want to hold on to it, but what if we want to sell it? What if we want to do something else? I mean, having properly maintained buildings saves you money in the long run. So I do want to address that particular portion because I'm extremely sensitive to that and and I respect your opinion greatly, Mr. Chairman, I do. So I wanted to express that.
I appreciate your opinion. I'm certainly not debating you. You have an opinion, I have an opinion, and I'm more comfortable with a financial recommendation from a body that we put in place to give those recommendations. And I don't think the building's on fire. I don't think it's going to fall in tomorrow. I don't think the windows are going to fall out of the Jolly building tomorrow. Those things could happen. The AC unit can go out just like it did.
Sure.
And we had to make an emergency appropriation, and we took care of the action just like we normally do. So, but I've talked enough on the subject, and I'm looking forward to the vote so we can move on. We're not here to really reevaluate the proposal or get educated on it again. I think it's time for us to make a vote, and hopefully the maker of the motion will spell out what that is. And Mr. Chairman, here will move us on down the road, and we can get on down with business. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. More than one person has spoken several times. We're only supposed to speak one time for 3 minutes. If an issue is extremely important, this is great. If we're going to keep by our rules, if it comes before the commission, it's supposed to be ready for us to vote on and take action. If it's, we've been talking for this for almost 45 minutes. If it's, we still got 1,000,001 questions, it needs to go back to committee. We're wasting everybody's time here and everything, going, because we already got more people wanting to talk again and again and again. We've already had the final person talk. Here we are going again. We still got a lot of stuff to talk, and there's a lot of questions that hadn't been resolved. Send it back to committee. We're violating our own rules and our own policies by going around and around and around and around. That's why we're here every night, full commission till 11, 12 o'clock every night, because we don't follow our own rules. Address everything in committee. And when it comes to a full commission, it's supposed to be ready to do nothing but vote on, ready to take action. That's why we're here every full commission night till 11 and 12 o'clock, because we don't do our stuff in committee. If it's we still got a lot of stuff to do, and there's a lot of questions about this. A lot of these questions is being asked. Send it back to committee, and let's address this in committee.
Thank you. Commissioner Isabel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I would ask is that we can send this through the Finance Committee as well. We can discuss it at Finance. We did discuss it before, in Finance Committee. We didn't vote on it, but we did discuss it, and we can do the same thing again.
Are you want to make that like a referral motion?
That would be an amendment to the motion.
Commissioner Smalley?
Yeah, I wanted to mention, someone suggested that this had already gone to Budget Committee. To my knowledge, it never came to Budget Committee, and maybe that's not necessary, but, obviously, some of the commissioners have had a great deal of time to look at this project and talk about it, but some of us have not. And I'm concerned at this point that I have enough information to make an intelligent decision one way or the other.
Commissioner Meade, and if you want to make your motion after the comments, if you want to just read it out.
Well, I just want to be able to make my final comment as a final comment.
Commissioner Meade.
Okay, the committees that looked at this spent hours and hours studying this in detail before we brought it full commission. We are already paying for almost all of the project improvements and millions of dollars of unnecessary energy costs. Why not act responsibly and vote yes, and for a change, have people say about Anderson County that we actually are taking action to plan our capital needs, not just handling them on a piecemeal basis as emergencies as they arise.
Thank you. Commissioner Isbell, did you want to make an amendment to send it back to Finance?
So this is not the final comment. You're asking for more comments.
Well, I'm asking if we're amending the motion to send it back to Finance or not.
I don't know that it's appropriate for the chair of the acting chair to ask for an amendment to something where there's been final comments.
Well, he brought it up, so I wanted to clarify if that's what he was asking to do or not.
We already are addressing it at finance. I
So
brought
it's-
that up at
oh,
our
okay.
last finance meeting that we would, so
Okay.
a motion's not necessary.
Okay. Okay. So do you have any final comment?
No, that's
Okay.
all.
Got a motion by Commissioner Mead, seconded by Commissioner Isabel.
I'd like
You
this
want
to
to
be
go
a
to the
board
board?
vote.
Let's go to the board and vote.
Could we restate the motion before we vote? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, I don't have it in front of me, so.
Okay, I've made a motion to do the extended plan as presented to the Operations Committee. Okay, this does not involve the authorization of any spending at this point. It only authorizes our contractor to provide us with a detailed engineering plan to move ahead in the future. The result of that plan would involve major capital updates across all of the county buildings mentioned. Okay? And put Anderson County on the map for now being a county that plans its capital spending, not just doing it as an accident. Is that clear enough?
Okay. We have a board vote? Thank you. Looks like 8.
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, for taking over. I appreciate it. Is there any other recommendations on this motion? Would like to send it back. I think Commissioner Fritz has a point. Would like to send it to another committee. Certainly to entertain a motion at this time.
I
Clear the
move that
board.
we defer this back to both finance and operations.
Have a motion to defer back to finance and operation. Is there a second to Commissioner Fritz's votes? Motion rather, seconded by Commissioner Jameson. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Thank you, Commissioner Jameson.
Two other things, Mr. Chairman. One was that under new business, discussion of Claxton School safety signs. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that.
Just a quick update. Again, a special thanks to Gary Long, Commissioner Fritz. He came out and put up a brand-new sign, and I know the school system's looking at putting in the flashing lights whenever TDOT gets their stuff squared away down there at the intersection. So thank you, yes.
And then the other thing is I want to give special thanks to Boy Scout Troop 131. They came in and led the pledge of allegiance.
Yes, of operations. That was well done. I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Now we are on to 11B, which is the legislative report moved from consent agenda as requested by Commissioner Mead. Commissioner Mead.
The good news is there's no specific action required. This is by the commission on this report. It's simply giving you I want to give you a brief description of things that were done in legislative that you will be seeing next month. There were basically 3 issues. One was a request from this committee for me and the legislative committee to review ways of giving the county a little bit more authority on the regulation of arms in buildings where judicial proceedings are in progress in the areas outside those proceedings, the rooms outside those proceedings. That has progressed, and I just want to give you a quote from one section of state law. TCA 3917-1314 Part B states, a city, county, town, or municipality or metropolitan government is expressly authorized to regulate by ordinance, resolution, policy, rule, or other enactment the carrying of firearms by employees or independent contractors of the city, county, or municipality or metropolitan government when acting in the course and scope of their employment or contract, except as otherwise provided in 3917-1313. 3917-1313 is a law that prohibits basically posting against firearms parking lots. Okay, another thing that came up was we identified a conflict in state law involving the lawful carry of firearms in parks. Basically, in one law, in 1311, the law that specifically addresses parks, It authorizes a waiver of a person that comes across a school activity in a public park, that they have the option of just walking away if they discover that they've come to an area where there is a school activity in progress. The 1309, the educational section that talks about the very same item does not give the same authorizations, and so we've talked with the legislature about getting that corrected. Basically, under the exact same circumstances, a properly licensed person could walk up to a school event and lawfully recognize it's happening and walk away like they're supposed to. And in one part of the law, it says it's a felony, and one part of the law says it's lawful. We just want to get that fixed. Additionally, there was another completely separate item. The committee has asked the law director to get with the property assessor, Johnny Alley, to see if it would be advantageous to do a resolution in support of actions being taken regarding possible misconduct by state officials regarding property taxes on commercial companies' production equipment. This is a really big deal. We're in the middle of a suit about this right now, but there's being actions taken that were stringently criticized by the judge the first time through. But now some of those same people that were involved as government officials are now back fighting basically against us. And the law director is going to be finding out whether or not we should do something in further support. There's already a lot of activity going on in Nashville about this, but there's tremendous financial support on the side of the companies that would like to stop paying taxes on a lot of equipment that still is active equipment. They should be paying taxes. That's all I have in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great report. Next, old business. Looks like Ethics Committee guidelines. I sent an email from the mayor and law director. They're going to meet. They haven't really had a chance to get together. Mayor had a lot on her plate. I know Jay has, so they're going to get together and bring it back to us. Was it the operations? So thank you for that. Any other old business by this body? Any new business? Yes, sir. Commissioner Smallridge.
Yeah, as the chairman mentioned, several of us attended the county commission meeting over in Knoxville a couple of weeks ago. I attended one session on the census, and they stressed, of course, the importance of doing a good job in trying to count every citizen, which is impossible. But and they use the example that every citizen is worth about $3,000, and I don't know how they figured that, but and they use the example of a 1% undercount. If you had a county of 40,000 people, a 1% undercount would result in a loss of about $12 million over a decade. So, you know, if we don't count our people in the census, someone else is going to get the money. And it's just very important that we do that. And I thought it would be good to, at some point, not tonight, of course, but to kind of get an update on our census and what we need, what we are doing and so on. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Smallridge. Good information. Any other new business? Mayor, do you have anything?
Could I say just a short statement?
Yes, sir, Commissioner James.
I was at the same meeting that 3 or 4 other commissioners were 3 weeks ago, and people from all over the state of Tennessee, she was there. There's 4 or 5 of us, and there may have been some more. I saw 4 or 5 of us. And one of the most, and I heard the thing about the census, and they've been pushing this because it saves you money, and I like for them to save money. I like for the county to save money. But what I was going to take just 1 minute to mention, they had a 3 or 4 member panel talking about drug problems and drug prevention, and some of you may know who Stephanie Strutner is, and she was on that panel. And in 20 minutes, I learned more about prevention of drug things than I'd learned in 20 years. And I think we're very fortunate to have someone like this that, excuse me, is not only well-versed, but she's able to go up and speak in front of several hundred people And I believe she really educated a lot of us. And I tell you what, I really appreciate what she does for the county, and I hope she stays here at least another 8 or 10 years. Thank you.
Well, Commissioner, yes, sir. I'm glad you spoke up, Commissioner Jameson. Thank you for sharing that. I agree 100%. Any other new business? Seeing no business before the, oh, excuse me, Commissioner Fritz.
Take just a brief moment to wish all my fellow commissioners and all the citizens of Anderson County a very happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Same to you, sir. The same to each one. Yes, yes, yes. Seeing no business before this body, we're completed. Thank you.